Good evening and welcome to the City of Pasco Council Workshop Meeting. The Council thanks you for being part of our city government. At workshop meetings, the Council discusses issues, but no formal action is taken. Agenda packets are available on the City of Pasco's website at www.pasco-wa.gov/agenda. This meeting is also being televised live on PSC-TV, channel 191, on Spectrum Cable in Pasco and Richland, and is streamed on the city's Facebook page, website, YouTube channel, and GoToWebinar. This and previous council meetings video is available on the city's websites. With that, can we get a roll call?
Yes. Councilmember Barajas.
Present.
Councilmember Blaisdell.
Here.
Councilmember Grimm.
Here.
Councilmember Harpster.
Present.
Councilmember Prowlis.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Milne.
I am here.
And I understand.
Yes, Mayor Serrano is excused.
Thank you.
With that, can we please rise and join for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you. And with that, we move on to number 4, which is verbal reports from council members. I know there's a lot going on this last week with Amazon, but do we have any council members that would like to talk about what they've done this past week? So we start off with council member Harpster.
Yeah, thank you. Attended Fall Festival this weekend, event that the city put on, and was able to talk with folks from the animal shelter, Parks and Rec, and Fire. And one thing in particular I liked about that event was, a lot of different booths were sponsored by the city, and everybody manning the booths was very engaged. And also the Aquatics facility, and so it's good to learn information. And it's disappointing when you go to events where there's lots of booths and stuff, but nobody's really engaging, and it's awkward to walk up and get a Tootsie Roll or something. So really like that, and was impressed with the size of the crowd that was there. And then also yesterday met with staff from city manager's office regarding the budget, and just getting a deeper understanding of some things. So that's it.
Thank you for that report. I appreciate it. So now we have council member Grimm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lots of the same stuff. Yes, attended Fall Festival in a non-official capacity, I guess you could say, and also had a Benton Franklin Transit meeting this week, and it was really just following up on the Citizens Advisory Network, and really just looking forward to next year. Got a report from the new CEO as far as planning and everything like that, and then yes, also was at some of the other ribbon cuttings and stuff. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for your participation. Do we have anybody else? I know on Monday, most of us attended the Pasco Chamber lunch with seeing the commissioners, all their different interviews, and I thought it was a really good setup, a really good event. It's really good to see what our county's doing and how they plan to fix their issues, if you call it that. And then I also attended the Amazon. We had a lot of our legislators, Nikki Torres, maybe not Torres, but anyway, we had a lot of people there. It's kind of hard to be on the hot seat sometimes, but anyway, good event, and the facility is amazing. I will say I was quite shocked on how massive the Amazon facility is, and it's an honor that have that facility here in Pasco. So with that, we are going to move, if I don't see any of the lights, so we're going to move to number 5. It says items for discussion with opportunity for public comment. So the public may comment on each topic scheduled for discussion, up to 2 minutes per person with a total of 8 minutes per item. If opposing sides wish to speak, then both sides receive an equal amount of time to speak for up to 4 minutes each side. So when we get to that at the end of the presentation, we'll let anybody in the audience that would like to speak on that topic will be able to do so. So with that, we are going to start off with 5A, which is Pasco Public Facilities District Aquatics Center update. We are going to speak to our former mayor, longtime former mayor, Mr. Watkins, who is now the Pasco Public Facilities District Executive Director.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Milne, council members too. It's great to be back in the council chambers. presented a number of months ago with an update on our thing. I wanted to give you just a bit more update because a lot is going very quickly. And in fact, today, not on this because I turned this in several weeks ago, so this is, data is a little bit old, but we got our state review from Commerce, which is a requirement for any public facilities district. So that step is a very important one, was accomplished literally today. And that's in preparation of us. Bonding will be doing pricing next week. I also just found that out today as well. So a couple of timely things. Just a really quick reiteration of some of the details because we have some more actual pictures, renderings, and that sort of thing. July was delivery of the baseline facility. Our process, which is design build, said, yes, we can do a $37 million facility, and there's a 100-page document with all the details, of which this is one image of it. This, of course, includes a facility that is a year-round facility, and I'd echo Mr. Harpster's point yesterday at the Fall Festival. Great opportunity. And it's still a bit of a surprise to the public that this facility is going to be year-round, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, indoor facility, and a seasonal outdoor facility. So it's always great to also see them like, really, and then be surprised and wow. So that's of course new to the Tri-Cities. Just to give you a reference too, we also did secure land. We are proud owners of a piece of dirt out in the Broadmoor area, and we ended up closing on that last month in September. It's basically where the center of that red X is, just east of the gravel pit. And of course, that fits in with a larger campus concept that we're trying to make with City of Pasco, a community center. Also, there's been some talk of maybe transit being able to do a transfer station that's maybe up in the air and being worked on. I think Councilmember Grimm might have some thoughts about that. Essentially, the layout, and this is 2 weeks old. We are continuing to refine the process. But this is a good layout of the facility that shows a phase 1 indoor natatorium, along with a eventual phase 2 competitive side. And how that fits into also parking arrangements and also leaves some room for expansion. Very important to my board members that anticipating this, say, as a 30-year time horizon, not only phase 1 and phase 2, but also phase 3. We know that we've been growing tremendously, and I think we've been hearing one of the things is that, of course, Pasco is doing this lift for this facility, and while it is also a regional facility, it is Pasco's tax dollars that are paying for it. So we're going to do our best to do a Tri-Cities regional facility, but with emphasis also on the people of Pasco.
Just to clarify on that, so on the where it has the square, that would be eventually more parking, and then to the left, would that be more like pools, like down the line in this 30-year project?
Yes, there might even also a theme I'm going to be also talking about are called betterments. We've had the baseline in July that says yes, we can afford the $37 million facility. That's come through a measure of conservatively budgeting things. We're also realizing, because of a variety of circumstances, we know that sales tax receipts have been better than expected. We also, for example, in the bonding effort, ended up getting a rating that was 2 notches better than we had originally planned for. We also likely are not going to have to do a reserve bond, so we're hopeful to go down deeper into that betterments list that there'll be a little bit of a sneak preview of, and add amenities to the facility as we go through construction. Hopefully that was intended as an answer plus some extra information.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thanks. That's kind of what I assumed, but I just wanted to hear it from you. So thank you.
Exactly. And we do have some more detailed sort of thing, but we're also anticipating and hoping that we might be able to have a hotel come in later on that we think would be complementary to the aquatics facility, and that's downrange, but that imagine that as a good spot down in the corner on Road 108. And of course, I got to say, and I think I said it before, this wouldn't have happened had we not had the tremendous help of Pasco staff to make this work. Regis Sigdell did a huge batch of work to help us out to make it tenable to do a road to essentially the middle of a 600-acre site, so that we could afford it as part of the project, and also jumpstart the Broadmoor project. So I think there's a lot of collaboration going on there. Couple models just before, I think I shared before that Linwood and Snohomish feature significantly in the models of the type of facility that we're going to be able to do in Pasco. I would add that we went to Blue Springs, Missouri several months ago, and that's a facility that just got completed a few months ago. So that's state-of-the-art sort of thing. They have a much bigger outdoor space than ours, but a comparable indoor space. That was a huge revelation for us on a couple of details as we've been picking amenities and the way we organize things. So between Blue Springs, Linwood, and Snohomish, those have been very helpful to us to use as models to do the Pasco facility. I mentioned, or I think I've mentioned before too, about when you're in the design build process, there are different ways to go. We use what's called choosing by advantage. That's by our construction company, Boughton, which you probably know. They also constructed the airport, as we're also working on the mental health facility. Basically, it's a green, red, yellow thing, and you would like to have as many greens as possible. So early on, we had strived with the idea that we would have a larger indoor space than was originally planned for. Originally, it was 40% indoor. We're not only doing that, but 60% approximately. So we're also, one of the betterments, we're planning to even make that indoor space a little larger yet. So we've been following this as a model, very deliberate process, and collaborative with our construction and design firm, Boughton and Knack. I also mentioned two betterments. This is an older list from July, and we're rearranging this as we go. But for example, increasing by 10% the interior space, we believe we're going to be able to do that. Also working again with Pasco staff in particular, doing a next-gen chlorinator. Our friends at the Memorial Pool say that's a really important piece, so we're going to prioritize that and some other things on this betterment list. Hopefully we'll be, well, ideally we'd be able to do everything but the reds on here, which is about $6 million worth, but realistically I'm hoping we'll get to at least go halfway down the list. A little bit more detail of the facility. If you walk in from the north side, this is the main entrance. There's an area open that you can go in the brown that's not a pass sort of situation. We have a line here with a reception desk. Once you go past here, you're a member or paid your entry for the day. You go by through 2 party rooms here and 1 party room here. The key here is these are affordable party rooms for families to rent out for pizza parties or quinceañeras, and also maybe meeting space opportunities for other community events. We have, instead of locker rooms, we have universal changing rooms, a ton of them. And we found that so far that's been the way to go with new facilities. These all enter into this very cool interior space. And this, by the way, is a July sketch. We've since improved that a little bit, that we're going to go 4 internal swimming lanes so that we can then also do a 2-lane ninja course that's competitive. A little bit of rearrangement of the slides and the children's play area, basically beefing it up and adding some amenities and space to the interior. So again, I had to turn this in a couple weeks ago, so it is a process that we're going through to beef things up. Then of course you go to the outdoor space, and I say this glass wall ends up being a great view to Badger Mountain, Rattlesnake Mountain, and the Columbia River from Columbia Center clear to the north side. The outside space, this is again back in July. One thing that we found, turns out wave balls have some issues, so we've added a second lazy river. That was on the top of the list for community amenities, so we have a larger lazy river. So I'll have some updated designs for these. Outdoor space, imagine some hot dogs and that sort of thing, and bathrooms outside. Maybe be able to pull a food truck or 2 up next to it. This is going to be a wonderful place in the evenings and the summers, especially in Pasco. That's the basic layout. One other note, 35-foot tall platform for the slides. That's pretty good height to be able to go up and then go down slides. And it could go on for hours on all of these details. Just wanted to give you an overview though. Some of the schedule, the overall schedule. I did say 2 weeks ago that we're going into, or we are planning to do ribbon cutting. No, excuse me, I always say that wrong. Groundbreaking is planned for January, and the opening of the facility April 2026. I think those are the two most important dates. And there is a view of what it would look like in the natatorium with the original July design and with Rattlesnake in the background, just an artist rendering. Gives you a little bit of a sense of place. And I'd leave on that and answer any questions that you might have.
All right, well, thank you for the presentation. Do we have some questions? It looks like we'll start off with Councilmember Grimm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Mr. Watkins, for coming and giving us an update. Just have a few questions here. One, just want to talk to you about the public perception and maybe what you're doing to counter it. You know, just some of the stuff I've seen on social media. I think the public's still counting on a water park versus an aquatic center. You know, I've heard, comments that, oh, that's, too small, even though you have phase 2 and phase 3 planned, or there's too few water slides. And then, looking at some of your comps there, for example, Blue Springs, Missouri, I see it's in the Kansas City metro area. It looks like a little closer. So I don't know. I see the population of the city is only 58,000. Versus our, kind of 300,000, but I don't know if their aquatic center serves like that greater Kansas City area. And just, I'm just sensing some concern that maybe, that it's too small or maybe undersized or not all the amenities that the public may be, looking for. And so just wondering, what the PFD is doing to, kind of counter those, or just to effectively communicate to the public, what they're getting for their tax dollars.
Sure, and I think I hit on it just a little bit as I started out. Remember that this is by definition a regional facility. This is also a facility that the city of Pasco is paying for with the sales tax. It is not coming from sales tax of Richland and Kennewick. So also, I think when in July when we came out with our initial information, and there were some people online, and I noticed that the high percentage of those folks were not Pasco residents, and they were saying it from a Tri-City perspective. And there probably is a kernel of truth in that, is that maybe this is not ideally sized for the Tri-Cities as a whole. I would remind them, though, that there was a chance to do that in 2014. Tri-Cities said no, but Pasco believes it's such an important thing that Pasco is doing the heavy lift for the Tri-Cities. So that said, there are some people also in Pasco think it's been a bit small, and I think we can dicker on whether or not some of the drawings that don't quite show the scale is. This is a bigger facility than people do realize. That said, that's also why we've been focusing on the betterments as much as possible, adding a 10% space to the indoor space. By the way, that runs about $1.2 million. These things are not cheap. You also mentioned one of the things that we did learn from the site in Kansas City. It is a community of 58,000 apart, a larger metro area, I think about 3 million people. Mm-hmm. One of the things that they did is that they do allow anybody who wants to be a season ticket holder can buy a ticket. But if somebody comes in off the street, people outside of their service area, let's say the equivalent of 99301, they're only allowed to come in on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so the locals do get to make sure and use the facility that they've borne more of the money towards. But so there's a balance there, and I think that's an example of what we'll be looking at, because we want to preserve the important experiences to this facility and also realize that the larger burden is going on Pasco taxpayers.
I appreciate that. That was actually kind of my third question. My little note here was Pasco residents discount price or some kind of incentive that, yes, people around the region are going to use it for something for obviously the sales tax users of Pasco.
We're not quite there on making those decisions yet, but also we'll be working also with our attorney with those things that are allowable, permissible, and a customary process. For example, swimming lessons have been a very important thing, and Pasco right now has the single biggest amount of public pool space in the Tri-Cities. When this facility gets done, Pasco will have twice as much as Richland and Kennewick combined. We are very much going to become the swim city of the Tri-Cities. And it's going to be important, though, to be leaders in that, and also to make sure that we take care of our citizens of Pasco. So there's a balance there.
Cool, I love that. And then you also mentioned my email earlier today just about Benton Franklin Transit and the Transit Center. Just trying to keep as much property out there on the tax rolls as possible to pay for the TIF, but don't want us to shackle ourselves to where we run out of room out there too. You mentioned hotel and other stuff, and not to have a buyer's remorse down the road a few years later, like wow, this thing really exploded, and wish we wouldn't have done that. Not sure if that's a better conversation with staff and, me being from the BFT offline or what to go about that.
Well, it's important that we, Pasco and the Tri-Cities, anything we can do to preserve this as a campus as possible. For example, the aquatics facility in Pasco's community center, that's still still a very good plan. And if there's anything we can do to get transit back in to be able to do what I understand is a 3 or a 5 acre transfer station, we should be open to. But I think they also had some functional requirements that property to the northwest would be more desirable. I'd check in to see if that property might be available first and foremost, and so that we do need enough acreage for a campus that does serve all of our interests over that 30-year time frame, for example.
Yeah, that's a concern. Just again, trying to keep as much on the tax rolls as possible too. So
Yeah, they're satisfying every single requirement everybody has. We all know as elected officials that's a hard task.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's a matter of picking the ones that matter the most.
Appreciate it, Mr. Watkins. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
All right, well, thank you. Do we have any other council members that have questions? I'm not seeing anything. It's a very good presentation. I did want to say that I had the privilege of working on the project before I even got on council, and so I'm very glad that your staff and everything listened to the constituents. I know there was a big concern that it would have weights and weight rooms and all that kind of stuff, but this truly is an aquatic center. I believe it's something that we could be proud of. I was kind of negative, in all honesty, back in the day, but I think you've impressed me, and I know the citizens asked for it, so I'm gonna go along with what our constituents want. But I do believe this is a very good facility. I think it looks nice. I can't wait to actually do the groundbreaking and see this come to fruition. It's just kind of crazy to talk about something and then obviously now see that it's gonna happen. So it's thank you for all your hard work on this project, and I do really appreciate it. So thank you.
And we thank you, as I believe you're still a backup, and Ms. Blaisdell is our liaison from City Council to the PFD. That's been helpful to the process as well.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. With that, we will be moving on. And since we do have a lot of people in the audience that would like to talk about the Court Street traffic calming discussion, I would like to actually switch it with the budget, since the budget is a 25-minute presentation, and sometimes 25 minutes goes on to 40 minutes. So if we don't mind, council, as far as switching those two, so if people like to talk, they don't have to wait another 40 minutes until they get their opportunity. So I'm going to switch C and B. So are we good with that?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make a motion to move C and B on
Okay.
tonight's agenda. But
We have a second on
Mayor
that?
Pro Tem, before you do that, could we move to the public comment portion of this item?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Just real quick.
Sorry, it's weird. Yes. So, do we have a public comment that we'd like to talk about on the Aquatic Center? If anybody from the audience would like to, I'm not seeing any hands.
I would say one thing.
Well, if you could come up to the podium and turn the mic on, and John could turn probably the mic on for you, and you'd have 2 minutes to say what you'd like. Thank
I
you.
was just kind of disappointed. I haven't been involved in that, but, and our daughters are done with their swimming career. So disappointed that you guys didn't have the competitive section of that, because you're really missing out on a lot of money bringing competitive swimming to this area. The teams around the whole Washington State have to go over to Federal Way and do all the regional type events, and they're just tired of going that way. So if that can be stepped up more for all the kids in the area that do competitive swimming, and you guys can have a good market, and then the hotel would be viable, but I don't think it would be viable without competitive swimming.
Thank you for that. I know, if I believe right, it's on phase 2 for that, and it is. We've talked numerous times about how important this is. We are aware of it, but as you know, with Pasco doing the heavy lifting, we only have so much money. But it is a council goal. It is to make this where students can actually practice swimming, have meets. So you have our full support. I wish it could be sooner, but again, there's only so much money.
Like I said, ours are done with that, so it's for the rest of the community.
Well, hopefully the grandkids could do it then. So thank you. Do we have anybody else in the audience that would like to say anything on this? All right. Well, with that, sorry about that. We had a motion on the floor to switch items C and B. And do I have a second on that? We have a second on that. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. All right. And any opposed? So it passes unanimously. So we are going to switch C with B. So with that, we have Court Street traffic calming discussion with Director Maria Serra.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. We are presenting to you an update on the traffic calming for Court Street. And for this presentation, we have 3 alternatives of improvements that can be implemented along the corridor, and we're focusing on the extent that goes between Road 96 and I-182 or all the way to Harris Road. The 3 alternatives are summarized in this slide, and we're looking at something you have already looked at before in number 1, which is a minimal build that can be implemented quickly. And so that is somewhat temporary. Alternative 1A is a more minimal option where we're just focusing on signs, quicker, more affordable, and finally a full streetscape project, which is part of our capital improvement plan. Okay, so we're gonna dive into each of those. The minimal build is very similar to what you've seen proposed as part of our citywide minimization, injury minimization, and street speed management study. We have estimated the cost of this work that includes installation of delineators, painted chicanes and islands, and striping, some additional signage, and radar signs to be in the $200,000 range. Of course, we procure all our equipment competitively, and we try to minimize costs when we're implementing it, but these are cost estimates with some contingencies built into it to be adequately planning for the work. The timeline, we estimate this can be accomplished in 2 months, maybe sooner if time permits, and we can reprioritize some other projects. And you're seeing just some examples of this implementation in other locations. The most economical option is very minimal. It would be some incremental approach where we start with just signs and later implement other measures. So this is the signs only option. You're seeing a big reduction in price, faster timeline. We're considering using our existing radar signs that are movable and then replacing those with the radar signs when they are received. This is just 2 of those installed, one in the vicinity of Road 111 and the other one 101, each in the direction approaching the basically area identified as a problem. And then the final alternative is much more involved. It is permanent infrastructure. This is curb, gutters, sidewalks, divided pathway from the roadway. It is estimated at $6.1 million as part of our capital improvement plan. Timeline for delivery is 30 months, including design, bid, and construction. This includes all the improvements mentioned, along with bulb outs at intersections, which shorten the distance pedestrians need to be in the road, and this is a safety measure necessary for safe crossing. additional crossings that are signalized or with rectangular rapid flashing beacons, and we have some of those shown there, both the bulb outs and the RPBB, the rectangular flashing beacons that are just activated when you are going to cross. So they're not constantly being in use. It's only when pedestrians are using it, and it's pedestrians and bicyclists. And then some islands to allow for that deflection in the lanes. Again, this is the whole extent of the corridor between Harris Road and Road 96. And just a quick overview of what is in the capital improvement plan. I'm so sorry. What I should mention is that in the plan, it is scheduled to be delivered with the support of a grant. And it is scheduled to occur in 2027 onward. Now, if this was council's desire, we would move this project ahead earlier and find an alternative funding source that could not be a grant in this case. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that presentation. As most of the council knows, I do live in this district at Court Road 100. So I will save my comments to the very end. I'd like to hear what the rest of the council has to say. So with that, do we have any council members that would like to ask questions or say their thoughts? So we're going to start off with Councilmember Harpster.
Thanks. Yeah. Since the last time this was presented 2-3 months ago, what additional work has CivTech done with regards to research and planning and design?
We have evaluated the alternatives, or they have evaluated the alternatives mentioned in prior council meetings, such as stop signs, crosswalks striped without ADA improvements included in them. Basically evaluating whether there wasn't, again, once more, the opportunity to do cushions or bumps in the road, and none of those alternatives were recommended for action.
Okay. The agenda report was only 2 pages, so can we get a copy of his report and the findings that he's got, presumably?
Yes.
Okay, that would be helpful. I was trying to think of another road similar to this one where you've got 2 lanes of travel, a bike path immediately adjacent, bike ped path, and then homes. The only one that came to mind was Kellogg Street in Kennewick, between Clearwater and 17th or 18th in there. It's very similar setup with the turn lane in the middle. That's the only difference. But there's stop signs throughout there, and the speed limit I think is 30, so same speed limit. What I was hoping to talk to Mr. Mesner about, or I guess you can answer, is why a reduction from 30 to 25 isn't feasible or doable, and why something like a couple stop signs at 1 or 2 or 3 of the 3-way intersections isn't feasible.
I can get answers on that.
Say that again.
I can get answers on that from
Okay.
our traffic consultant.
And then another idea, and again, curious what Mr. Messer would think, is in Seattle. I forget the name of the neighborhood, but it's near Seattle Children's Hospital and Husky Stadium. There's a neighborhood kind of on a hill, very tight streets, but there's, I don't know what it's called besides miniature roundabouts throughout. And that forces traffic to greatly slow down, or else you're going to run right into, generally there's a rock in the middle or some kind of a sign or some kind of artistic feature. So I'd also, I'm not a traffic engineer. I'm not trying to be a traffic engineer, but I'd like to hear from probably another traffic engineer. Besides, I'd like to hear CivTech's latest, but then also kind of get a second opinion. Like if you got a medical issue, you're going to hear it from one doctor, then you're going to want to go get a second opinion to make sure you do your due diligence. So that's, I think, a common practice. And so not that he's not credible or anything, but I'd like to hear from somebody else maybe who's got more experience in Tri-Cities projects and specifically Pasco. Because looking at the delta between a $200,000 project and a $6 million project, there's got to be something that gets the job done for more than what the 200,000 the 1 and 1A options are, but certainly less than what the second option is. I understand with whatever we propose or move forward on, it's likely not going to make everybody happy, but I mean, there's got to be something more we can do than the options presented this evening. So, I believe that's all for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Harpster. Next, we're going to go with Council Member Blaisdell. Or actually, it's reverse. It's Leo Perales.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yeah, I'll be quick. I think we got, this is very important though. Yeah, I would like to have Mr. Mesner come in so we can talk to him, hopefully about his report. And I would like to extend that there be a deadline for this report, like in the next week or so. I think sometimes we get told we have consultants working on stuff and then it goes on for months and months. And I'm not saying investigations and reports can't take a while, but sometimes I think if we're not putting pressure on them to get it done, I'm sure he has other clients. So I would like to see that done, and so we can discuss it before the end of the year. Or if not, I would rather like Councilmember Hobson was saying, I wrote down getting a second opinion from a different consultant. I think I've seen CivTech used quite a few times, and I'm not happy with what I've seen in regards to some of the solutions. I do feel like us as a council need to go out and understand how other cities are doing things. And again, I brought up the whole city of Spokane with the changing of the laws back in 2013, creating their own processes so they don't have to have a speed study done so they can lower the speed limits or implement other speeding and traffic calming measures. I don't see the issue with us going from 30 to 25. I say that as a council member and hopefully getting that control back as a body. I think we can make that decision ourselves at this point if we change those policies. But I'm going to go a step further. I'm going to be making a motion next Monday to make that happen. We can get the city attorney involved, but I think we need to do something and need to do it now. I don't see a problem with going down 5 miles per hour. Let's just make our streets more safer. And the studies back that up. If you guys want, I can send over that article about the city of Spokane, how they changed and revamped a lot of their speeding around parks and schools and stuff. And it was a lot of studies done from people across the nation. And I would like to see, in regards to this, I want to see more speed bumps. I've been taking lots of strolls down over in that area since we've been talking about this. And in particular on Saturday, I actually went down Road 96 and actually physically saw people going around those speed humps. So, and so I stopped and I couldn't believe it. I hear about people saying it here in the city council or emails, but to actually see it, like, we're not doing anything. I think we need to extend those out more, figure out a way to make it so that they can't go around those, put more speed humps there. But now that traffic is, doing that and they're going down over off Belfair, like we had people say last time, and it's just got out of control. I actually stopped and talked with a construction firm, and they were telling us that people are just driving through there very, very fast and, almost hitting them, these people in their work trucks and stuff. I really just think we need to find a way to take people or residents' concerns seriously and actually do something rather than wait for some of the funding and stuff. But I really do think we need to, as a body, as a city council, change the process and how we do this, look into what I was talking about with the city of Spokane and the changing of those policies and procedures so that we can start implementing this stuff faster than just waiting for another consultant to tell us what we can and can't do or go get second opinions. I hate trying to reinvent the wheel here. It's like, we're not trying to do that. I'm sure some city across the nation, across the state of Washington has already done this stuff, but yet it seems like we're always caught up in the bureaucracy of it or waiting on a consultant. So those are my comments. And like I said, I just really want to see something tangible done, reducing down to 25 miles per hour, installing more speed cushions like we did on Road 96, and really taking into consideration what the residents have to say, because it's their tax dollars, we're the representatives, and really feel like, that they're feeling heard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Perales. I do appreciate that. I'd also be supportive if we could get that done. I mean, depending on what legal says, but I would be supportive of also lowering the speed limit from 30 to 25. It should be an easy fix on that. But we will also next go to Councilmember Grimm.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. You know, I do share some of the frustrations that I think Councilmember Perales also expressed. I think this, you know, just the speeding issue, though, extends way beyond, you know, what we're seeing in the Tri-Cities. It's really, this is kind of what our society has become. You know, we have lost a little bit of civility. That we are more lawless, I think, than we have been in the past. And I think the speeding we see out at Road 100 is just kind of a current flashpoint of a much bigger issue. But it's also here in the Tri-Cities. I think of my own neighborhood along Sylvester, where the whole idea of taking that to 2 lanes was to mitigate speeding drivers going down the road. And, you know, what we recently did at Burns Road, too, also taking that from 4 to 2 is another mitigation, you know, of, you know, speeding drivers. You know, I appreciate the safety we have here. I appreciate the quality of life here. And, you know, I think we owe a lot of that to our police, to our predecessors who have set us up. That's why I've chosen to raise a family here and open up a business. But, you know, these are real concerns we have to, you know, we have to listen to and adhere to. And, you know, to me, it's really frustrating that, you know, we give up a free flowing Sylvester because people, you know, late at night want to use it as a drag strip. And so, you know, I appreciate council members. Harpster's idea of those little mini roundabouts. Yeah, I've been in some of those neighborhoods in Seattle or other urban areas where you do have long strips, and those are a good answer. And so, yeah, I think more options, you know, we have the better. Obviously, we can't afford to have a police officer on every corner, and you know, we're already asking them to, you know, be the social safety net of society, way beyond, you know, what law and order was ever meant to be. And I really appreciate them for that. But this is you know, an ongoing issue that's not going to go away anytime soon. You know, even if we solve this here, it's, you know, going to show up somewhere else. I too, you know, got an earful today, and, you know, deservedly so, from a frustrated resident, you know, in that 96 and Ballflower area, that you know, the things we're doing at Road 100 are just, you know, pushing it elsewhere. And so, yeah, just as much as we can kind of take a, you know, some of these we are going to have to take case by case, but as much of this we can look at more of a holistic problem throughout the city to preserve our quality of life, would really be where I'd love to see us go with this. So thank you.
Thank you for your comment. We'll go right back to Councilmember Harpster. I guess you'd like to say something as well.
Yeah, I just had one other comment I forgot to mention. Director Sarah, if you or maybe someone from CED could follow up on this. The Columbia Shores plat down the street from here, west, is a huge plat, and looking at their SEPA mitigation, they weren't conditioned with any traffic mitigation. And so just curious the reasoning why, whether it was, you know, they didn't break the acceptable level of service or what, but that to me would have been a good opportunity for the city to collect some funding to improve traffic in the area. So at some point you could just follow up with why that was. Thanks.
Well, thank you for that. As you know, I also I do live in the district. It's the district I represent. And, you know, being out in my house, obviously you hear cars going down. Sometimes it seems like 80, 90 miles an hour. I mean, they're freaking racing. Obviously, we know a cop can't be there all the time. So my question for you, Director Sarah, is I know we've talked about it. I know you've mentioned a couple times about the roundabout at Road 100 in Court. I know it's in the future, but could that project be moved up? And what kind of roundabout are we looking at? Because I know when you're coming as in heading south on Road 100, it is kind of a weird turn angle to see, you know, especially cars heading east. If you can kind of give me on, you know, is it on the budget, or how long would that particular project be? And I believe that would be one way of slowing down some of the traffic.
Certainly. So projects can be moved forward at your request. It is not part of the budget currently, since it is not in the 6-year plan. The analysis based on the transportation system master plan, it was identified as a signal, but like I included in the report, there is the opportunity to evaluate flows and volumes and reassess whether a roundabout would be a better solution. I think that intersection lends itself to a roundabout. So Looking at that, it is at your request, it could be moved forward and identify funding sources for it and begin the work.
So I guess my biggest concern is, we have two developments happening, two pro-made developments, the 485 townhouses coming in on the old Harris Farm. You have another development of, I don't know exactly the number, but say 1,000 townhouses off Road 100. But still we have all these cars, and you say each person maybe has two cars. So now we're talking 1,000 cars heading down Court Street. The reason I moved there was to have peace and quiet, not to have people flying low. So I believe around about, I don't know what the price of those things are, but obviously it would be smaller, I assume, than the one on 68 in Court. So I would like to see, a cost, if that could be moved up. My other couple questions, I know we've talked about this. We've talked about the speed bumps. I know the gentleman from the traffic engineer had talked about that, and people would try to go around them just like they're going around on 96, and that they could go into the lanes of the bike paths trying to get them around. Is there any other alternative, say, like if you had speed bumps where, say, then like there you had like, I'm not saying like a planter box, but more where the speed bump maybe was like a crosswalk at the top of it, so it wasn't just a bump, it was actually more of a flat, and then like you see in California or some of the other cities like that, where the top is a crosswalk. Could you? I know we've talked about like speed, the snow plowing, that could be a problem. We've talked about fire trucks having that as their ladders becoming uncalibrated with speed bumps. Would this be a question for the engineer or the consultant, or could you say some things as far as why can't we have like two of those in this district? I mean, I think it's a great idea. It's something I would like to see. And then the second part of the question is, I know when I've talked to your department about the crosswalks, you're saying that the crosswalks can't be there because we might not know how many people would be in that area and there could be lawsuits. But if you look at the presentation, if we had $6 million, maybe I'm wrong, but it looks like then we could get crosswalks. I mean, why do we say one thing and then a report says the other?
Okay, I will take both questions one at a time. So the first question truly is a traffic engineer question, but I can give you what I have learned through working with traffic engineers, and that is that speed bumps and speed cushions are intended for neighborhood roads. So when we have them installed in wider roads, there's the problem of the swerving potentially onto oncoming traffic or traffic or pedestrian bicycle facilities. So that's one side of it. And then the other thing is that this is not a neighborhood road. This is a federally classified road as a major collector road intended to become an arterial. It's one of the few connections east-west that crosses under I-182, and so it's just incompatible with the use of the road. With that said, we will get a firm confirmation of those statements from our traffic engineer. And then on why crosswalks could not be installed. The statement during our discussion was crosswalks cannot be installed not based on the volume of people using it. We understand there's people using the pathway and the sidewalks. The concern with installing crosswalks in locations where there are no ADA compliant facilities is that we are giving the idea to those pedestrians that that crossing is a safe crossing to be had. And so unless we're building the infrastructure surrounding it, it is not recommended to have crosswalks marked, because then we are intending to stop vehicles by exposing our most vulnerable users of the road. And we want to avoid that.
Okay. And then my other one is when we talked about the 40,000 where it shows the speed, you see somewhere it like boom, boom, lights up. The ones in the presentation just show like a regular sign which just says the speed. I mean, so these ones, and I even got like an email from a guy saying, hey, you could go on Amazon and get something like this for $3,000. Why would the city spend, $20,000 on each one if these cost $3,500 or whatever it was? I mean, are these like industrial ones that would like have a lot of lights that would blink And then, can you kind of explain? I mean, what if somebody's trying to see their high score by flying low? What would be like the max? And then, I mean, if it actually gets over something, does it like trigger something where it's recording it or letting like Pasco PD know that hey, this is what's happening at this particular time of day? Or I mean, can you kind of maybe clarify more on that?
Certainly. So the signs that the city of Pasco procures, they're procured through a competitive process, and the intention is to have those be programmable, so that we can establish a maximum speed at which they go black. Typically, the recommended delta between the posted speed to where it stops showing the score is 10 miles per hour above the speed limit. Additionally, they do record information, and so the information could be recorded and then used for assessment, basically monitoring the effectiveness of those devices being installed to see if there is a increase or decrease in either speeding or issues along the corridor.
Okay, I just want to clarify. So the one that we see that say they're $20,000 each for two, say, and that's installed. But would we have one that has like you see some that have a lot more lights, or would it be just the one that says the speed and then a solar panel on the top?
It would provide the speed at which the vehicle is traveling. Yeah, and I apologize. It may have the wrong picture in the slide, but that is the intent. It's a radar feedback sign, so it's telling you at which speed you are traveling, and then it flashes when you are going above the speed limit, and then it goes black once you have surpassed the speed limit by a certain amount, typically programmed to 10 miles per hour above.
Okay. Okay. Well, thanks for that clarification. Looks like nobody else has any questions, so now I'll open it up for public comment. And just to reiterate, 2 minutes, and let's keep it as civil as possible. Thank you.
Good evening. Rod Wiebring, 10504 West Court. And I've provided you with a write-up. Let me just read through it real quick. I'm writing to each of you regarding the traffic issues we experience on West Court Street. My comments are specific to the stretch from the intersection with Road 100 to the bridge underpass. My comments are in direct response to the notice of the meeting for tonight. In reading the agenda, I was shocked to see that city staff had concluded that speeds have been determined to be reasonable and expected for the conditions. This conclusion is in direct conflict with police traffic studies completed and a meeting held early last spring at 10508 West Court, which was attended by city staff and police officers. In that meeting, city staff discussed the problems and various methods of dealing with it. It was a consensus of all present that we had a significant problem and risk to pedestrians and bicyclists on the Sacagawea Heritage Trail. And I might just point out, one thing that has not come up in the discussion of Sylvester or 96 or any of these others, we are sharing that street with the Sacagawea Heritage Trail. And it's a big deal. If you don't live there, maybe you don't appreciate the traffic on that, which shares a stretch of West Court Street. City staff did not dispute the problem then and was in agreement with the need for corrective action. The only conclusion that now makes sense is the city has overspent on other projects, including the East Lewis Street overpass and major modifications on West Sylvester Street, among others, and funding is not now available. Thus, the narrative has seemed to be changed. The city cannot keep adding high-density housing in our area and expect that a bad situation will not get worse. The changes on West Sylvester consisted of a wholesale remake of that street, adding sidewalks, a walking bike trail separated from the street with a curb and ditch, crosswalks, and so on. These changes are exceptional and far beyond what is being asked for on West Court Street, which handles more foot traffic and bicycle traffic in a day than West Sylvester has in a week.
So if I can
As a
get you to,
pedestrian, one must compete with cars, trucks, buses passing us within 5 feet with no separation or protection. frankly, it's absurd.
Yeah,
It's
I
time
hate
to
to say
stop
this, but
spending
could I
money
get you
on
to
studies
finish up?
that go nowhere and wasting staff time. It is time to install 4 or 5 speed cushions on this section of West Court in conjunction with the lowering speed limits to 25. We don't need to have a sophisticated design.
Mr. Weaver, I do know you, and I do appreciate it, but we do need to make sure that everybody else gets a chance. I'm sorry, 2 minutes is not a lot, but I'd appreciate if you could wrap it up.
I'd like to say one other thing. It seems to me that well-placed bollards on the upstream side of a speed cushion could very quickly stop people from going around them.
All right, thank you for your comment. I do appreciate it. Looks like we have more comments. Sorry.
Reed Simpson, 11404 Court Street. I'm really glad that most of you are agreeing with making some changes out there. It's really refreshing to hear that you actually are hearing us. How many people are here from Court Street? You got quite a few. This is a serious issue for us. You can see that it's really important. People showed up to make sure you all understand this is a big deal for us. All right. Somebody in the city of Pasco decided to take off crosswalk signs, crosswalk stripes on the bike trail coming off the bridge just in the last couple of months. I assume it's Public Works. They took the stripes off. You guys are talking about safety, and then somebody at the city of Pasco takes off the safety stripes. It's hard to even imagine that somebody could come up with that. The radar signs at 40,000 for 2. Oh, man, I just can't believe that. I'm glad you brought this up about the Amazon, because we can do that. 2 holes, pretty cheap. Are we going to ever see something happen? We've been talking about this for quite a while. You guys have been supporting us. You've been listening to us, but nothing happens except lines coming off the street. I mean, actually make a crosswalk disappear when it was there before. It's just hard. I can't even believe it. This is, and I heard somebody say it's not a neighborhood road. You live there. Yes, a neighborhood. You guys come out there. You see it's a neighborhood, but somebody over here says it's not a neighborhood. Who's a neighborhood? Look at these people. They're not businesses, they're residents. Please listen to us and move it forward. We just need some action. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have anyone else?
Just, Mayor Pro Tem, just a reminder, so the way the code reads is that 2 folks get to speak on each side. So if you want to ask if somebody on the other side would like to speak, of course that also that rule can be suspended with the vote of council. So it's certainly up to the council to decide how to proceed.
Okay. Do we have any for against what we're talking about tonight? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, with that, public comment is closed. I would ask, obviously, I really do appreciate so many of my neighbors showing up. I would ask that if you have other ideas, or you like me or any of the other council members to advocate for any of these other ideas that maybe we haven't thought of, please send us emails or give us a call. I'm always willing to hear different things. I just want to continue living there and live in a peaceful neighborhood where I feel safe to walk my dog. And sometimes I actually don't use the Sacagawea Trail. I go down to the park, but I actually avoid going on court because sometimes it seems like people are going to hit my dog, and I definitely don't want that. So, but I do appreciate everybody coming out, and I do appreciate all your feedback. So thank you. And I also see Mr. Dallas Green, and I appreciate all the times he sent me emails about people speeding and different trucks and stuff like that. I know there's a lot of trucks now with the different development at Harris Farm, and whatever we could do to mitigate the speeds of these trucks coming out there. We don't want, again, it's not a race course. So, but I'm doing my best. I've sat with meetings with Maria Sarah, spent hours going over it, and definitely this is a fight that I'm definitely willing to go to bat for. So again, I appreciate you guys all being here. So thank you. Hey, Miss, Miss, you can't speak from, but please send me an email or give me a call. I'm definitely willing to talk to you. So thank you. So with that, we are going to move on to C, which is the presentation of the 2025-2026 biennial budget, and that is going to be by our city manager, Adam Lincoln.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. So I think to start off the presentation tonight, we're going to kind of take a step back to some of the things that we mentioned in the previous meeting, and Deputy City Manager Sigdell was going to run through a couple slides, and then I'm going to kind of read through a quick preamble, and then we'll go through the 3 department presentations. So with that.
Evening, Council, and Mayor Pro Tem. I would like to go back to our last week and first start with an apology. There was some numbers that we had provided to you that were direct from the system, which we've traditionally not done. But there's value to that because that's transparency. You can see exactly what is within our financial system, not always user-friendly, and not always having context to it. One of the concerns that you had last week, and I was struggling to follow along on where your concerns were coming from, which was regarding our reserves and usage of our reserves. So I would like to start with that because you need a little bit more context that was not provided last week. So bear with me here. Not always a straight shot. And please interrupt me with any questions that you might have. So this first slide includes a more detailed version of your reserves. It includes both general fund, and at the very end, for the last 3 years, those oranges are what is in the economic development fund, which is essentially some money that we transferred from general fund to our economic development fund. The section in blue is what creates a lot of confusion for us, and so we're going to work through that. But essentially what this report includes, this graph includes, is your fund balance for general fund, including at the end of the year any of your loan proceeds. So at the very beginning in 2016, it's hard to see between green and blue, but there's about $1 million that we ended that year in terms of loan proceeds that we still had when we issued debt to build our police station. So we spent that money in 2017, so we ended the year with no loan proceeds. Our fund balance in that time, even though it looks like it decreased, really the available fund balance outside of the loan or debt proceeds was almost exactly the same. And then in 2018, we had not issued any loans, so there was no complications there. And we increased it a little bit by, I think, $2 million there. In 2019, you'll see a huge jump, and that's because we issued debt to build Station 83, 84, some other bigger facilities, and we had about $18.5 million left over in 2019. And that's part of your fund balance, but in my mind, not really, because you took out that debt to build things, right? And then you go out to the next year in 2020, and if you look at the debt proceeds line, that is where the story is told. So you started the year with $18.5 million in debt proceeds, and then you ended the year with $10 million. So essentially what that means is that you spent about $8.5 million to build something, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to go to the next slide, please, and this is just a slide of the last bottom line that you saw and that you were reacting to last week. Next slide, please. So I apologize, it's never big enough, but I would like to talk about how these two numbers correlate. So if you're looking at 2020 actual amount, your reaction last week was, we overspent by $1.3 million. What were we doing? So let me give you a different view. So we essentially, in 2020, we draw down $8.5 million in capital. So we built fire stations that year. But we got the money the year before.
So essentially, what that means is that if we had made $1.2 million more in revenues that year, we would have been able to build the fire station with our own money without the debt proceed. So essentially, we actually increased our fund balance that year by 8.5 minus 1.2. So that's what that number means. So you go out to 2021. In 2021, you started the year with $10 million in debt proceeds. You ended the year with $4 million, let's just say. So we spent $6 million that year building something, which was very likely fire stations again, because it was a long process. And so if you look at 2021, you're looking at an $11 million deficit with that snapshot that we gave you. But really, we spent about $6 million building something. And also there was that $12 million that we've been talking about that we took out of general fund and put into economic development fund, because at that time we identified need to go out there and buy some land, very likely for our reuse facility. We're still looking at what the exact needs are, how much land we will need. So think of that $12 million as not money spent, but basically you took it out of your checking account to a different account, one account to another. So if you add those numbers up, you're looking at $12 million plus $6 million that you used for capital, and you're looking at 2021 $11 million deficit, but it's not really $11 million deficit. It's essentially, actually, I think it's hard to do math on the fly, but 12 plus 6 minus 11, so around $7 million that we added to our fund balance. You go out to 2022, very little difference there, but 2022 was a banner year for almost every municipality, just in terms of sales taxes that were coming in. And then in 2023, you will see a slight increase in debt service. That is because we issued debt again to a much lesser amount than we did with the fire stations, but we issued debt again that we had not quite spent down yet. So with all of that, the next slide becomes, this is a little bit cleaner, and this is what we should have provided you with. So this is what it looks like with all of that noise taken out. So you will see that in 16 and 17, we're pretty much flat, around $13.5 million. We started increasing in 18. Our economic base has grown quite a bit in that time, so around $16 million. And then you get to 2019, which is $22.5 million. 2020, almost 29 million. And then you get to 2021 where the number really increases, because some of the spending during COVID, frankly, to a finance person was quite confusing. But there was a lot of spending, and there was a lot of significant sales taxes. And also to remember is significant construction that was going on during that time, and also construction for large industrial facilities like Amazon as well. And they bring in one-time construction sales tax that is included in those numbers. And so overall, you have a significant amount of fund balance, but I will caution that there are monies within here that are only can be spent for specific things. There's still general fund things, but by the way of example, public safety sales tax. There's portions here that are public safety sales tax, but we can only use that for police services only. Building permits, they can only be used for permitting functions only. There's also still the question of how much land we need to buy. But I wanted to show this to you to give you a better snapshot of what the history has been. And yes, we have a really healthy reserve at this time, but there's also a growing need of a growing community as well. With that, again, apologies for a number that raised concerns without any context, and open for any questions that you might have.
Yeah, thank you for that. I do appreciate the more detailed explanation. I know when we had our budget meeting, you were also making a point that it's not like just Pasco is in this boat. It's the other cities are in the same boat as well, where the whole Tri-Cities, the other councils, the other administrative departments are having to tighten their budget. So it wasn't, I don't know if you want to clarify on that, but I thought it was more real enlightening that it's just not us.
Yeah, I think to add to that, it's more than just our region. Even it's something that I talk to other city managers across the country, that this is what they're facing right now. But certainly in Washington State, as we're all familiar, and a lot of that I think stems from the decline in sales tax. That is what so many cities are really highly dependent on. So as the economy goes, so does a lot of our budgets, and we've been fairly safe in the past, but it seems like it's a little more limber now with where we are as an economy. So certainly locally, we're also hearing from the state that they're looking to make pretty significant, maybe not cuts, because the state seems to always have more revenues, but they're certainly looking at a much shorter revenue, an increased revenue shortfall than in previous years. So I would say it's across the board.
Well, thank you for that. So yeah, anybody in the council that would like to comment or have a question?
If not, I'll sort of go through a little bit of a preamble, and then we'll hear from the Parks Department and Fire and Police Departments tonight. Apologies. Sorry.
Cut me off. No, I just want to say I did have the opportunity to meet with the staff, and I appreciate the clarification. As I watched the meeting from last Monday, it did seem a little scary, but also working for a nonprofit and having to allocate different pockets for different projects, I kind of see that in what you're doing. And so that further explanation in that meeting that we had helped a lot. So I appreciate that extra effort to make sure that we are being transparent about everything that we're doing. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Brajas. So now we can move on to the rest of the presentation.
Sorry, I didn't want to cut anybody else off.
Oh, no.
Apologies. Okay, so just really quickly. So, and apologize for reading this, but it'll help me be a little more concise. So, last week I introduced the 25-26 draft budget, specifically covering the general fund. Over the next several weeks, departments will provide overviews of their proposed budgets, which you'll hear from 3 tonight. I and my leadership team take the matter of balancing this proposed budget with reserves seriously. Understand that the budget proposed provides us the opportunity for us to find solutions and establish a path forward to align with our current revenue forecast. I also want to assure you that this budget is about being responsible and sustainable. We will make smart long-term decisions and focus on the projects and services that really matter for our residents, and while keeping with our financial future secure. So many of the things that are already in motion include we're finding new ways to work smarter. Instead of trying to do more with less, we're embracing tools like lean process improvement to streamline how we operate and deliver services more efficiently. We're going to work with the auditor and some consultants to make sure that this is part of our entire work culture. We've begun exploring revenue options like fees and city levy. We're taking a more strategic approach to staffing, reimagining vacancies and holding positions open where warranted. We're also looking at incentivizing some things like retirements to support these efforts. And we're additionally cautiously optimistic about the Broadmoor projects coming along. We think they're beginning progress now, but we want to be cautiously optimistic there. This is also a good time to carefully consider using reserves as we explore ways to improve the budget. We're in a fortunate position where we know that we'll have significant economic growth because of Broadmoor, and we want to make sure that we're putting forward a budget that's as strong as possible for City Council to consider. So with that, the Parks Department will be the first presenter tonight.
got the director of fun, so we, not sure this is gonna be a fun presentation, but.
Actually,
shoot
because it's
away.
budget, I'm going to try to keep it a little more level-headed tonight. But I am going to come up here and stand this evening because the police chief and fire chief don't have chairs over there, so I guess it's only fair if we all stand up here. So, also, we lost somebody's glasses, so. So good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. This is actually one of the first times I've had to present a budget in this style, so I made sure that my slides outnumbered the other two departments as much as I could. This is our initial budget overview for the Parks and Recreation Department. I have updated a few of these slides based on council questions since last week, so I'll kind of point those out, but I've also included the updated slide packet and email to the city manager, who I believe forwarded that to all of you as well. May have not have seen it yet, it was late this afternoon, but we are working towards that, so. Basic overview, and I think most of the other departments are going to follow this format, so I'll just move along through these as we go. Starting with the initial department overview. So, Parks and Recreation Department was created in 2023 after a reorganization from the Administrative and Community Services Department. That included the Parks, Recreation Facilities, IT, City Clerk, and a couple other things thrown in there. So, based on based on our 2023 Parks and Recreation Open Space Plan, we reorganized that department into Parks, Recreation, Facility Services to help focus on those priorities. Then the department's grown since then. So now the department really consists of recreation, parks, facilities, the Tri-City Animal Shelter, and what we're calling downtown, which are those services we took over from the DPDA in June 2023. But for tonight's presentation, I'm going to primarily focus on parks, recreation, facilities, and downtown as they're budgeted within the general fund. The department does have additional accounts we'll bring forward to you in the future, which includes the cemetery, Martin Luther King Center, multimodal, marina, and a handful of others. So tonight, general focus on those departments, and we'll come back and talk about the animal shelter at a different meeting as well. So a quick review of each division. Recreation currently staffed by 8 full-time positions, 80 part-time seasonal positions, which are our aides, coordinators, lifeguards. Provide several different areas of activities like swim lessons, geocaching, programs like our after-school and summer school program, various sports including league and recreational, volleyball, basketball, soccer, flag football. And then special events like our Cable Bridge Run, 4th of July, Spring Extravaganza, and many others. We'll cover some more of those. Some additional services. We have our Aquatics program, which includes 65 lifeguards, and we offered over 200 swim lesson sessions and more than 2,000 registrations this year. Our softball complex, which we've had 23 tournaments scheduled, which is over 1,300 games and estimated $5 million in economic impact to the area. Lamps and Cable Bridge Run, our 45th last year, 46th this year. We had almost 2,000 attendants. Those numbers dipped during COVID, but are working their way back up. Grand Old Fourth festivities between the parade, the fireworks, and the activities over at Memorial Park, almost 13,000 in attendance. And of course, we have our youth sport leagues, preschool program, and adult sport leagues items as well. So lots of participation across various different areas. Moving on to our parks division, we currently have 22 full-time staff. Those are our groundsman, our park ranger, our arborist, and our manager. And then a combination of part-time and seasonal staff to help offset those things that occur in the warmer seasons from October through November. Some of that's boulevard maintenance, park maintenance, additional restroom, trash can maintenance, items like that. But the general concept for parks is maintaining our landscapes, parks, playgrounds, trails, boat launches, sporting complexes. Additionally, in 2023, we re-added the Park Ranger program again. I think this is the third time we've started that program in probably 15 or 20 years I remember, with the idea to improve community engagement, park patrol, shelter renter oversight, bicycle path patrol, and things like that. Additionally, Parks helps with a lot of our special event support, so all the sporting tournaments, our boat races, parades, and festivals. And they have also their own special events like Washington State Arbor Day, National Arbor Day, Earth Day. Many of you have attended those. And general services, just quickly through those, we currently have 30 city parks, which total about 600 acres, 7 athletic complexes, just over 100,000 sprinklers that we maintain throughout the area, 28 lineal miles of boulevards, and because one of the students asked from the school, 251 garbage cans and approximately 4,500 trees we maintain. Shifting through to facilities, I currently have 9 full-time facilities. That includes our 6 facility members, the lead, our manager, and a cemetery customer service representative. We also maintain 1 part-time cemetery groundsman position to help maintain those grounds during the spring and summer months. Facilities is tasked with maintaining all of our offices, shops, water and wastewater plants, police and fire stations, pools, and splash pads. We also have the City View Cemetery, which is unique. I think Walla Walla is one of the other cities that has a cemetery, and they also do their own special events: Memorial Day service, Veterans Day service, and added last year Wreaths Across America. So lots of impact to the community. Currently, they maintain an estimated 580,000 square feet of building space in over 40 locations. About 2,100 work orders completed last year. You and I probably have 1 HVAC filter replace every couple months. They replace 1,200 filters annually. They've been working to convert most of our facilities to LED lighting to help improve energy efficiency, and also received about $20,000 of rebates from the PUD, and maintain just over 14,000 grave sites out at City View Cemetery, keeping those looking good for those relatives that come visit. Again, one of the ones we just added in June 2023 was downtown, which includes our Pasco Specialty Kitchen. We talked before in a recent email. We have 22 clients, 1 storefront window, which is currently occupied, and 2 food service windows, which we're currently looking for clients. We maintain the farmers market, which is 25 or 26 Saturdays a year, May through October, plus normal monthly special events. And then we took over the dedicated Cinco de Mayo and Fiery Foods festivals, which were normally part of the downtown or DPDA services. Moving on to some of our accomplishments, we've renovated our softball complex to continue to attract tournaments to our area, new cemetery columbarium, and a pet memorial area. We just recently opened up the Sounders football courts, and many of you came out for the ribbon cutting for those. 8th Street Soccer Complex, completed with the help of our engineering department managing those projects. We received just a little over $1 million in grants to help support a lot of projects, and as well as about $100,000 in event and program sponsorships, which help offset the budgeted amounts for our special events. Collectively, we've kind of done a count, whether it's showing up, putting up a tent, supporting at a job fair or a big event. The overall department supports or touches a little over 200 events each year. So. And then a lot of new building and current facility enhancements, including a police training center. They handled the human resources office remodel, the wayfinding signage you're finding outside. Several new fire stations were brought on board, as well as taking care of the specialty kitchen and many others. I think Parks and Rec relates to many of your current council goals, applies to the quality of life, where we're providing quality parks, boat launches, facilities, and a broad range of recreational programming for all ages. Community safety with the implementation of our park ranger program, as well as making sure that we have safe and reliable facilities for both citizens and staff to report and operate. Economic vitality through the Pasco Specialty Kitchen, and significant economic impact from softball, soccer, and swim tournaments. We also help kind of maintain the city identity with our beautiful tree-lined boulevards, our city signage, and signature special events that we're known for. Reviewing historical staffing, which has been one of the things, context for the budget. This kind of outlines staffing for Parks and Recreation. I kind of add some notes here that this does include all department staff. Some of these are in some of those other funds. However, I did exclude animal shelter staff for a future presentation. And additionally, over the last 5 or 6 years, we had some job title changes and some additions. So it's hard to kind of track through, but I did combine these together to, I think, illustrate exactly what we've done. So you'll see in 2021, we had 31 staff. We added 1 in 2022. And then as identified, we did add 9 in 2023. And we have several reasons for adding those staff. Some of those are due to our new Parks and Rec open space plan, which identified multiple years of long-term deferred maintenance, as well as an extraordinary shortage of Parks and Rec staff and compared to other cities our size. We've added additional facilities, additional parks, additional boulevards, and several other items that kind of demanded the increase of those staff. So if you check that email I sent you, you'll find a pretty good bulleted point list of those, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions as you have time to read that. So budget impacts, three areas of budget impacts we're looking at: staffing, reductions, and improvements. So right now, in this initial overview of the budget, we are planning to hold 4 open positions across all the divisions. We currently have 1 position vacated in our facilities department, and then we're looking to identify another 3 across any of those that are maybe eligible for retirement or vacate would be our first choice of those. So. But with any staffing reductions, particularly as we were understaffed to begin with and we continue to add items, there will be impact to current service levels. And we are going to do our best to minimize interruptions, but they may include recreational programming, ability to maintain the quality of the parks and boulevards, or delays to maintenance and repairs. But we will prioritize based on risk, impact to community or staff, financial implications, and deferred maintenance effects, so we don't fall further behind than we potentially could. Some reductions that we looked at this year and will be, I guess, available for you to review and consider, is that we are looking to focus training and travel only on our required license certifications and high value needs. So therefore we maintained our similar 6-year budget average versus increasing that based on the additional staffing and additional things we're doing. Looking at combining Fall Festival and Spooky Hall, those events are fairly close together, and I think we can combine to do those all here. That'll make one bigger activity, I think, here. During COVID, we implemented a higher filtration rating on our HVAC filters to help reduce the spread of that. Looking at cutting those back to the traditional rating that we've used. We've been very fortunate receiving grants from forestry and DNR for our annual tree replacements, so we're going to reduce that to look at offsetting those. One of the things that we've been regularly repeating was the Farmers Market weekly music entertainment, but it is an add on top of Farmers Market, so we're looking at reducing that. Combining our parks and facilities after hours emergency phone call service to just 1 staff from both divisions instead of each division having 1, and they'll have to work on contacting whoever may need to come out and fix those problems. Limiting our small tool replacements to break, fix, or repair only as needed versus planned life cycle. And basically that would save about $27,000 from our, again, reduced 6-year average, and those years do vary, so I had to kind of make an average on that. Eliminate the park gate closing service, which is currently only out at Chiawana. Eliminate our City Hall end of the day security walkthrough service. And then reassess the need for our ongoing pigeon control pest management services, which is really a combined contract with both the railroad and the airport. So we want to work with them to make sure they're continuing those services. If all of us aren't doing those, it doesn't have the reduced impact. So again, potential reductions for consideration of this budget. And then some improvements, as the city manager mentioned, we are looking for improvements, whether through the official lien process or just how we might be able to be more effective with what we have. So we're looking at recreational programming for those with maximum participation versus limited to see what, promote those that are drawing the most. Implementation of more efficient multi-use equipment to help reduce labor and costs. We are researching a shared cost lifeguard labor pool between us, the Aquatics Center, and potentially the other cities to help grow that into a single labor pool to reduce competition between trying to attract lifeguards. Expand marketing of our recently transitioned bird and socket complex to help offset operational costs by increasing the tournaments. Expanding our sponsorship opportunities to help offset our special event operating costs. And review of recreational program and rental fees to ensure we are being competitive but also accessible to most of those in the community. And then implementing additional efficiencies and facilities when it comes to task scheduling to minimize travel between sites and how we're procuring our parts so we're not running out shopping for parts between each and every task. So those are some of the improvements we are going to be researching and hoping to implement. So now down to the big numbers. So here's our proposed operating costs as thankfully prepared by our finance director, because this is definitely something you don't want me doing. T-shirt canon, yes. Finances, no. So I did add some updated notes to this. So these numbers as presented do include the program reductions presented above. Those are those hard dollar ones I outlined. But it doesn't include the proposed staff reduction, any delay of equipment replacements, any of the efficiency improvements, or an annual cost of living increase. And then some upcoming 25-26 projects that we're still continuing on with. We have our Broadmoor Shoreline Park conceptual design. Pasco Aquatic Center management, a mountain bike trails course, some pathway, trailway improvements and patching. Of course, the Martin Luther King Center, which is again being led by our Public Works Department, but we are participating with that. We finish up the Highlands Park football fields and restroom upgrade. Working on a volunteer park tree walk, which is through a sponsorship. Memorial Park pool dome cover. We are making progress with the state health department, moving that forward. Looking forward to creating updated park and playground standards to help augment all of our new developments to ensure those parks and playgrounds meet standards moving forward. Peanuts Park North, which you're aware of, some additional bird and soccer field improvements, and still working on getting Marina Dock B replaced through the FEMA grant program. So lots going on still, despite any potential budget cuts or holdbacks for the next few years. All right, I think I went fast. Questions, comments, any more information I can get you?
Looks like we have Councilman Grimm.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Rice, excellent presentation. I don't know why you said this the first time you've ever done it, just like this. This was really, really good to see.
This is just the first serious one. Well, when we get through budget, I'll get back to me. But I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, I appreciate you tying much of this back to our city council goals where applicable. I know, police, fire, and public works, seem to, as you say, take the spotlight. And, I appreciate the transparency of the details about, where the public's funds are going. This isn't our money. It is the taxpayers' money. And especially, where you've added staff and really just highlighting that, not hiding it, but highlighting it and explaining it or whatever. I really appreciate, the only thing specifically that sticks out to me, and perhaps it's just more information looking at it closer, but just some of the feedback I've gotten from the public as far as the gate closing service and, especially, out at Chiawana, some of the feedback I hear from our residents as far as, late night carousing and other behavior like that, might take some stress off the police department too, not having to, go out there too. So, I may come up with more at a later time, but sure, that's the only thing that stands out to me now that I really like to look at a little closer just for public safety. Thank you again, Director Rice.
Sure.
Thank you, Councilman Grimm, and I would actually echo the same thoughts with the Chiawana gate. I know there's a lot of people that are unhappy about the gate being opened, and but I do appreciate making that comment. So do we have any other council members that would like to comment or have a question for Director Rice? None, seeing none. I appreciate you being up here. Thank
Perfect. If you think of any, please get them to the city manager's office and I'll see what I can answer for you. Thank you.
Well, looks like we got the big guns coming up here. Chief Crowley.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Thank you for this opportunity to discuss the 25-26 fire budget. So again, like Director Rice said, we have a little bit of a outline of how we're doing business. So right now, I want to give a quick overview of our department. So our department consists of 5 stations, and we have a total of 103 staff. What we do and the services we provide to the community are fire protection, of course, and that's both structure and wildland. On the wildland component, we do send people out. We have people that go into what's called incident management team assignments, and they go out throughout Washington. We also have some people go into Oregon and help with some of the fires there as well. So we have people specifically trained for that. We also provide all the EMS service, so that's both basic and advanced life support. And on top of that, we also do all the transporting to hospitals. We also contract with the Port of Pasco and provide all the ARF firefighting. That's the Airport Rescue and Firefighting. That's 2 people per ship that are on that and provide the service for that. We also have several specialty teams, and what those consist of are the technical rescue team, and that they specialize in rope rescue, so low and high angle rescue, trench and confined space rescue. We also have a water rescue team, a team that specializes in vehicle machinery rescue and also all the hazmat material response. And then as far as for community risk reduction or community outreach, we also provide smoke alarm checks, we provide CPR instruction, And we also have a program with our resource navigators. What we found is sometimes people don't need to either go to jail or go to the hospital. They need people going out and finding them the resources needed that don't fall into one of those two. So some of the accomplishments that we did in this biennium, finishing up, is we opened up Station 85, as we talked a couple times about opening new stations. With that, though, comes the in-service of the new vehicles into that station. We put 1 brush truck into service, so we have a total of 3 brush trucks, 3 medic units. We also hired and promoted 2 new deputy chiefs. They're actually back over there. So Chief Harkins and Chief Mortensen. 1 medical officer, 1 training officer, 1 assistant medical officer, and 1 assistant training officer. So that sounds like a lot of movement there, and it actually is. But what it is because with people moving or leaving the organization, we just had people either internally or outside take these positions, and kind of like a domino effect, they kind of filled those spots. So one of the ones we did, though, is with the assistant medical officer position. We actually reclassified one of our positions that was a planning position, and we reclassified that when we're looking at what is needed in our community and for our department. So that was just a reclassification. And then again, right now, what we're doing today, even moving forward, is we have 3 new structure engines that we're putting into service. That was purchased, and we just about a year ago, and we just got these in just over the last couple weeks, and so we're putting those into service to replace outdated equipment. And then we're also putting together the project of finalizing the purchase and implementation of new defibrillators. And those are what goes on our medic units. So it's a new machine coming out with the highest technology out there today. And so we do have the funds allocated for that. We'll be coming back probably a little bit later this year and presenting that to you as well. So funds are saved for that project, and we're looking forward to moving on that as well. So when we look at building this budget, a couple of things come to mind. One, we want to make sure that we're meeting council goals. And so in our area of focus for that, we look at, though we try to meet all the council goals, a couple stand out to us. So financial sustainability. So again, the main focus on this was creating a very responsible budget. Part of this process, though, it allowed us to go through several exercises, and that includes looking at all of our current processes. Our department's grown pretty quick with a lot of new staff, and so now it's a good time to look at how we're doing business. Can we redefine how we, whether it's ordering new equipment, whether it's deployments, how we do business, and look at all our processes. And we're also looking at and assessing all of our equipment, our vehicles, our staffing, and making sure that we're actually meeting the needs that the community wants. Again, probably the number one thing we do is community safety. And so again, when we look at response plans, as we grow and work with our other community partners, we want to make sure that we get the right resources to the right calls. And so that's when we when we talk about response plans, making sure the right a medic unit, an engine, making sure that right combinations go into the right call. And then city identity. We put that on there because that's one of the things we're doing through the rebranding process. We are looking at making sure everything we have is really supporting Pasco, the city of Pasco being Pasco strong. And so we're moving forward, making sure all of our logos and everything is in alignment with the rest of the city. Again, our big focus is making sure that we're all this one city. So a little bit of the staffing history. You can see the numbers stay pretty much the same, but when you see the big uptick, that's between 2022 and 2023, and that's when Station 85 was being built. And so through a SAFER grant, we started preemptively hiring staff to make sure they're trained, so when Station 85 was opened, that we had people to go ahead and go right in and start functioning out of that station. So that's when you saw the big jump, and you see the jump right there. If you look down under firefighters, you see 21 go up to 29. So I got to tell you right here, when we say general fund, so our fund and the way we are funded at the fire department is in 2. So this is the general fund, so you see half, and the other ones are half of them from the medical fund, which is a presentation we'll do at a later date. So that's why you see these numbers. So really, when you look at the total, it's about double of everything you see. So this is a quick snapshot of our organizational chart and how we operate and how we're developed. So again, the fire chief, under that we have two deputy chiefs. One is operations and one is support services. So really, when you think about it in more of a simplistic way, operations is more the people, support services is more the things, so the stations, facilities, equipment. So under the operations, we have a medical officer and a training officer, each run their own division. And then we have the field units, which are run by the battalion chiefs. And then for the support services, we have community risk reduction and then our logistics coordinator. So again, going through this process, as far as looking at the budget, we want to see what are the impacts. And a lot of times when you start looking at how we can do better in the fire service, we look at process improvements. So again, what we're looking at doing is creating a centralized logistics center, creating a one point of contact for ordering, and refining workflows and how we submit vehicle and facility requests. This is actually a pretty big thing for us because right now a lot of our stations have their own little logistics room. And so as we start looking at how we can create more efficient operations is having one more centralized logistics center. And so we don't like have duplicate, triplicate items of everything. And that just kind of reduces the redundancy and then reduces stock on hand. So we don't have stuff that might just be sat on the shelves for years and years, becomes outdated. It just keeps a little bit cleaner stock. We're also going to start collaborating with other agencies for training opportunities. Right now, we're taking advantage of that with our Regional Fire Academy. We did one in February, which we partnered with the city of Richland, and we have another one come up in our next February, and we're trying to get another city involved with Kennewick coming in. The goal of that is if we can get more cities coming together, we can reduce costs, build better partnerships, and just a better situation for everybody. As we go through our processes and what we're looking at, one of them is really looking at reducing non-operational overtime. So what that means is looking at, can we make sure we're doing what we need to do in our day of work and not trying to do more. So we really want to do more with less. We don't want to be doing that. We want to do what we can do with our time at work. And so some of this is going to be looking at how we provide some of our training. For example, some of our EMS training, a lot of it's online, that we do some of the didactic work online, and we do the hands-on portion in the station. So we are training some of our firefighters to be instructors. So a lot of that work can be done on duty, and so not off duty or sending them to CBC, and all that is overtime, because a lot of that training that we do is mandated, and you need to have that for your certifications. And then again, looking at the deployment and our resource deployment and what's called effective response force. And what that is, again, making sure that we're getting the right resources to the right location on a call. One of the big things that we look at as a fire department and we look at our deployment models is making sure that we're reliable and that we're available to respond in a short manner. And so if we're over deploying, that leaves us some vulnerability. So we want to really make sure that we have the right resources going to what needs to the call at hand. When we over deploy, that can lead to calling back overtime crews to make sure that no gaps are created. So again, by going through our deployment models, we can really redefine and making sure that crews are available. So some of the anticipated decreases that we're going to see. We're going to analyze when positions become open, what's needed. A lot of it might be more on whether it's the day staff or even on shift work. So as these come through and as we look at our response to calls, we're going to see what's really needed. So as people retire or leave the organization, we're just going to really evaluate the true value add of that specific position. We're putting a pause on what we call the peak hour unit program. That's a program we wanted to start looking into. That program right there was creating a unit that was working mostly Monday through Friday to respond to more non-acute calls, so more we call them BLS calls, and then keeping our ALS units and engines in service and allowing this one to kind of zip around and get the non-acute calls. So we're going to kind of put a pause on that and just kind of see where we're at. one of the programs we want to really look into is a Heart Safe program. That's a program that we go out to the community. We teach business owners CPR, stop the bleed, and getting out in the community and just making a safer community. So right now, as we're reevaluating our processes and staff and their capabilities, we're looking at holding back on that product. Well, we're not going to actually cut it, but just holding back on the timelines of it. We're also looking at our reserve apparatus and vehicles that we have. So looking at, we have a little bit older fleet. So as I said before, we got 3 new engines coming in. So we want to see, do we need to keep all these other engines that we have, medic units, staff vehicles? The more we have, it's a little bit more increase on maintenance. So there's a trickle down effect on that. So we're going to be evaluating that and seeing if there's some pieces of equipment we might not need. And then also limiting our training to just or WAC mandated and CBA, so collective bargaining agreement requirements. So really making sure that we're within state protocol, L&I requirements, and then honoring our CBA. So we're kind of really going to keep a lot of our training just focused to that. So what will not be impacted? So this is pretty important. So one of the big things that we want to make sure that's not impacted, and again, goes back to everything I was talking about, is looking at processes, response times, is we do not anticipate, or we will not reduce or increase our response times to critical calls. We're still going to provide our staff with essential training to do their job, so they're prepared to go to work and help our community. And we're also going to make sure our staff is well equipped and has the proper equipment, for whether it's vehicles, protective gear, or any tools they need. So those are some things that are very big when we look at our budget, making sure that our crews are well trained and equipped to do their job. So again, just expense and revenue, a quick glance from 2021 to up through to actually right now for 2024. So it looks at expenses and revenues, going from there. And that's when you see some of the jump is during that, when we open up a new station and we got the new staffing coming in with that. So as far as our expense history, so you kind of see it's a little bit small on the bottom there, but you can kind of see how we see our salaries and benefits and our supplies and services. Again, you see a little bit of a jump when we got new staff, but then after that, after in 2023 and then going into 2024 and then moving forward, it pretty much levels out with that. And so through our, we feel that we have now, when we built our budget, we really stripped it down and said, what do we actually need for training to meet those requirements I outlined before? And that's where we're at right there. And that's where you kind of see we have what we need. You know, we've been very fortunate to get what we needed from council and from our community. And right now it's just maintaining that and refining some processes. So potential revenue sources. So when we look at how can we look at if we need more revenue, is a levy lid lift. Something like that, we would look at the impact of how that would look if that's something that the council was interested in pursuing. Ambulance utility tax, and then the implementation of a lift assist ordinance. So that's, some cities are starting to do that. And what that is, if you're not familiar with it, is that'd be basically looking at care facilities that call 911 services to lift a patient, non-injured patient that maybe slipped, and they don't have the staff to help pick them up. They call 911. And so that's a tax on the 911 system because that takes a unit out of service. So that's something we're working on. We're doing some outreach on that and making sure that's the right thing to do. And again, we do plan on bringing this back to council for your review and discussion. So some upcoming key projects. So right now, it's a big topic out there is our radio system. So we are moving forward with our regional partners, and we'll be planning on switching to an 800 megahertz platform. Right now, we're in a VHF system that's failing, and so that's one of the big projects that we'll be doing regionally. Both Benton and Franklin counties go into this system. The transition of mobile and portable radios to a regional vendor. Again, we have both multiple agencies have different radios, so we're trying to get all that together so we collaborate, so we just have one vendor, try to buy in bulk and reduce some costs. We do want to look at securing land for 86 at some point. And so when we look at Station 86, what we're looking at is more East Pasco. As that's developing, a lot of growth is going to be out there. And so we just want to be prepared. So as we look at building stations, we can't just build them tomorrow. So we got to just plan for that. So right now, even looking at apparatus or buying engines, right now, if we want to buy a new engine, it's about 4 years out. So really planning for that is pretty critical. So we are starting to look at some land and securing land. We're also paying attention to how Broadmoor is developing and if a station needs to go in there at some point in time. The last one right there is a new ladder truck. So this is something we've been saying for many years. We do have funding. We won't be asking for more funding. We're hopefully through some of the reductions that we're talking about, maybe selling some excess vehicles that we don't need, but using that money to roll into that fund. So right now we have 2 ladder trucks. Both of them are aging a little bit and not as reliable as we want them to be. So that's going to be a key project that we're looking at, is making sure we can fund that with current funds. And that's what I have. So do I have any questions, or is there any questions I can answer?
Thank you, Chief Crowley. I do appreciate it. Very good job. So we're going to start off with Councilmember Grimm.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Chief Crowley, for your presentation there. And just, most of my questions I was typing out, you ended up answering by the end. But, I appreciate you speaking to financial sustainability as a city. This is not a comfortable spot for us to be in, looking at balancing a budget on reserves. I appreciate our city manager and our deputy city manager also, echoing that. But the line I put under that was keep your guys safe, and you answered that, in those slides to the end, making sure they have the right gear, or, friends of a family, of a dear firefighter family. I know how important protective gear is, cancer risk, so many things to your crew. So yeah, we would never want to, look at those as being things we're, leaning on you to do or whatever. Sure. That is first and foremost, is keeping your guys safe. And then, yeah, I just was talking about sale of fire trucks. You're talking about reserve apparatus and then replacing trucks, and just what do we do with that? I mean, this city council's thinking, man, let's have an auction, let's see, what kind of money we can get for those. And then, just the overtime, the non-operational, and I appreciate you pointing out that it is, looking at non-operational, because first thing that comes to my mind is, what's critical services, is perhaps somebody missing by doing that. I mean, overtime's expensive, trust me, I get it, but, at the same time, there is a, balance of services too. And then you're right, I was completely unfamiliar with the lift ordinance. I'd never really realized that. And yeah, I mean, that is the kind of thing that, perhaps is worth looking at. I'm sure some gray area, maybe comes up in some of the nursing homes about, well, no, he's really injured, or something like that, to avoid that. So, that is worth, diving into, but, for the sake of liability and stuff, hopefully, we look at it really closely. So again, thank you for what you do for the city, and appreciate the presentation.
Thank you, and I appreciate the comments. And I do want to clarify, when we talk about surplusing vehicles, it's something we don't want to strip everything down to zero. So we also keep several units in reserve. So we have so many medic units in reserve, so many engines in reserve. We'll make sure that's good. So other than that, there's some pieces that we probably can surplus. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Councilman Grimm. So now we're going to go to Councilmember Bras.
Thank you, Chief, for your presentation. Appreciate the, again, transparency. Couple questions that I also had on here, and you sort of answered. In regards to trucks, are we still waiting, or any trucks in back order that we're still pending on?
No, we have all of our vehicles.
Okay. And so you talked about the cost. One question I want to elaborate on, I want to hear a little bit more about.
Sure.
Your Heart Save program, CPR classes, this is with businesses. Is there a fee? Is there a cost to people to participate? Is there any type of, I'm not going to say that we are profiting out of people,
Sure.
but is there any sort of return of investment?
Right. I would have to get more information on that specifically. I can talk to our medical officer who have a little bit more information on that, and I can get back to you on the actual fee structure on that.
Sounds good. Thank you. And that's all the questions I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Bras. Do we have anybody else from the diocese that would like to make a comment? We'll see you none. I guess you're off the hook. So we do appreciate your great presentation and thank you for all you do for our community. I do appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Now we have our Chief of Police, Ken Roski. So we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Maybe I just. Oh, it's already queued up for me. All right. Well, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, for taking some time to listen to the presentation. We've worked closely with the city manager's office to make some difficult decisions, understanding that there's only so much money in the checkbook. We have to obviously make our mortgage payment, but we also have to make sure the fire alarms work in our home. So it's kind of where we're at today. I'm going to walk through this, and then I'm happy to answer questions towards the end. With that, though, when we do get to the budget cuts and the reduction of services that we are looking at, those aren't easy for us. They're not easy for the city manager's office, but we will put some options on the table, as many as we can, to get where we need to be with the budget, and then ultimately give you some good opportunities to look at options as well. So, a department overview. It's comprised of 3 divisions: field operations, support operations, and the professional standards division. The police department responds to about 200 calls for service each day, with about 74,000 calls for service projected for 2024. 110 employees within the police department. 98 of those are commissioned police officers. 12 of those are professional staff. Support operations, detectives handled about 750 cases over this past biennium, with 54% clearance rate. Field operations attended over 100 community events, or responded to requests for an officer to attend an event, as we continue to focus on building trust and transparency with the public. The Regional Police Academy has 1 commander and 1 TAC officer. Both of those are commissioned officers. These salaries are reimbursed by the state in full. Additional Pasco officers provide periodic instruction at the academy. Those are fully reimbursed at a fixed rate by the state. Our drone program is a premier program in the region, leading to many deployments supporting the tactical and safety operations of our officers and the public, as we're looking at those critical calls for service and ensuring that the officers and the public are as safe as possible. We are recognized as one of only 3 law enforcement agencies in the state of Washington to attain dual accreditation, one through WASPIC, the Washington State Chiefs Association, and a national organization known as CALIA. You've seen presentations on those. And then we serve on many, our staff in the department serves on many leadership roles across the region. Some accomplishments in this last biennium that we should highlight is the implementation of district policing, as we took the strategic plan and the benchmarks from those and started implementing that model, combined with evidence-based policing, targeted and predictive types of policing, so we know where do we need to put our officers to try and predict the best places for them. Partnership with the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission established the first regional academy in the state, known as the Pasco campus, or Basic Law Enforcement Academy Pasco. Increased participation in community events. Creation of Professional Standards Division, which has enhanced officer training, increased transparency and accountability, both to the community and the staff internally. This division also successfully addressed hiring deficiencies that we saw after COVID and the anti-police rhetoric that swept the nation, and streamlined our process and allowed us to strategically hire officers when the nation was struggling, we were able to find our way out of that and hire at a pretty rapid pace to fill our goals. Implementation of middle management ranks, that was identified in the strategic plan as deficient. We now mirror our partnering agencies here and up and down the West Coast as best deployment models for management ranks and leadership ranks in the department. Redesign the Police Department Citizens Academy program to be more accessible to individuals whose primary language is Spanish and reflects changes to best practices in policing. Increased focus on minimizing people being victimized in the community when crime occurs. Officers work swiftly to locate the suspects and ensure they do not further victimize the community. Nationally recognized as leaders in progressive law enforcement focused on technology, training, and best practices. Acts on our drone program, the Mine 90 survey, and forensic techniques. We work closely to address concerns in downtown Pasco, created innovative strategies and methods to solve abandoned vehicles, RVs, and other issues. Adopted ordinance, or suggested that you adopt ordinances to address public safety concerns. Implemented a real-time community survey that improves immediate feedback on officer interaction with the public. Implementation of unfunded legislative mandates that increase training, supervision, and staffing requirements. So the goals, your goals, that we think most fit into the projects that we are working on and that we continue to strive for are listed here, recognizing that the police department will aid any of the other departments in the city with a cohesive, collaborative approach to address any goals that they have, and likewise they're helping us with ours. Historical staffing up through 2024 shows an increase of 12 officers, commissioned officers, to address staffing for the population increase and to meet the benchmarks of the strategic plan. And then a very busy organizational chart, just how the department is laid out today. So budget impacts. Again, these are options that we have out there. We work closely with the city manager's office to identify which ones. None of these we like, but again, as I mentioned, we have to have budget restraints that we have to make sure we can meet. So we plan to be prepared to implement these going forward. Delay of replacement of essential equipment such as police radios and extending police vehicle leases, transitioning to routine maintenance to third-party vendors at a cost saving for regular maintenance and better efficiency on our non-emergent vehicles. Reduction in janitorial supplies and services by limiting the number of locations and locating products within the department for reduced cost. Find innovative ways to utilize existing software instead of acquiring new software. We work closely with IT on that. Research cost-effective options for essential supply ordering and maintain a master inventory database, saves the one-off purchases. Continued efforts to examine online reporting for minor crimes by the public. Some process improvements, minimize unnecessary prisoner bookings, working with prosecutors in the courts to improve the process of limiting incarceration for non-violent offenders while maintaining the safety of our community. This process improvement is expected to result in a reduction in inmate lodging and medical expenses. The department aims to expand on-site training to minimize travel expenses such as lodging and per diem. The Axon Officer Safety Plan will provide additional technology enhancements that will expedite digital evidence redaction processing, as well as streamline administrative tasks, allowing for additional focus on patrol duties. Continued on some decreased service levels. Community-oriented customer service level decreased by reducing lobby hours and the closure on Fridays necessary to accommodate fewer professional staff. Minimal participation in city-sponsored event, Cinco de Mayo, Grand Ole Fourth. Those officers that are assigned there largely are on overtime, and if we're going to reduce significantly our overtime budget, that's an area that we have to look at. Limited opportunities likewise for community events. Many of those do come at a overtime expense and or an officer at the road, and as we look at reducing service levels, community engagement may take a hit there too. We look to close 2 district stations, the Kurtzman and Alderwood. Freeze the planned traffic unit, deviating from the strategic plan. This includes a reduction in overtime traffic emphasis details and specialty traffic responses. Delay adding a special victims unit detective, which is in contrast with the strategic plan. Reduction of support for our federal task force participation, FBI and DEA task forces. Postpone our citizens academies. Those are largely have a significant amount of overtime as we have instructors teaching those. Suspend the domestic violence contract service. Suspend the abandoned RV impound program. Stop the headquarters and training facility CIP projects that are listed on CIP. So what's not impacted? Commitment to the community. We will continue to stand with our mission, vision, and values and the commitment to the community. Emergency service response. We aim to have less than a 6-minute response to all priority 1 and priority 2 calls. We're going to do everything we can do to ensure that does not get impacted. The district policing and evidence-based policing model will ensure those efforts to fight crime remain high. Officer safety and confidence through continued training and purchasing of essential supplies and services. So the police officers will continue to receive the high level of training, the same amount of training, and the same amount of safety supplies that they need to do their job to ensure they and the public are not put into jeopardy. And then collaboration with other departments to ensure clean and safe parks, continued participation in traffic studies as best we can, and requests to the other departments in the city for the drone program that we help them with. The slide here is busy, but let me just explain, walk you through it real quick. A ratio that we look at is our officers per 1,000 population. That's a standard across the nation. It's not the only standard we look at. The response times, population projection and growth, service levels that we want to provide, but it's a benchmark. The gray bar with the number at the top reflects the calls for service and then the anticipated calls for service projected forward. The dotted dash line at the top is the state average of officer per 1,000. And then right below the year is the population of the city and then projected going forward that we anticipate. The green line is based on our projection using the strategic plan to ensure that we meet the demands of the community and the growth of the community going forward. Ideally, we want to balance those officers per 1,000 at the national average or somewhere close. Our average today is below our counterparts in the Tri-Cities and across the state. So the green line is the guide that we would plan to shoot for and had planned to shoot for absent these restrictions. The population or the dotted blue line would show if we stayed status quo. We didn't freeze any of our anticipated positions, but we would stay status quo in the department going forward. What that looks like as far as our ratio and the decrease and the challenge of meeting under 6 minute response time. The solid purple line is if we hold projected 5 peace officer positions as they become vacant with retirements or whatever, as best we can project that, that's what that purple line would look like. Police department cost history, just like the other 2 slides that you saw tonight, this revenue and expense is generated out of the finance department and kind of gives you a reflection of where we've been and where we are anticipated to go. Projects in 25 and 26 that we want to continue with, the Axon technology enhancement, grant-funded technology projects from Department of Commerce to implement pursuit intervention technology through auto theft and stolen vehicles. And with that, I expect some questions, and I'd be happy to answer those.
Well, thank you, Chief of Police. I do appreciate your very good presentation. Like if we were to implement all the cost savings, what is the cost savings that we're talking about as far as where we are now to where if we were to implement everything that you've suggested, what would be that amount?
So the dollar amount, what it would look like to continue with the strategic plan and the addition of officers, I don't have that number. These reductions that we have listed are cumulative in that is what we need to get to the budget proposed line items overall from the city manager's office.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I know there's some things I like, even the RV. I'd hate to see these things go away because these can be an eyesore. And then when you're talking about cutting certain staff, I mean obviously we're now having in previous people coming in talking about they want more cops to hit people with tickets when they're racing, and then now we're talking about trying to decrease the traffic section that you're talking about. So definitely some hard choices, but I'm definitely willing to see what the other council members have to say. So let's turn it over to Councilman Leo Perales.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So we're fully staffed right now at 110. That's fully staffed, or
I believe we have one police officer vacancy that from a retirement. I'd have to look at that for sure, but I believe we have one left.
like based on that one slide with the growth, what at the top of your head, you may not know this, what would be our budget if we were to keep pace with the growth?
That's the number I don't have. We didn't cost that out. We can,
Okay.
and we'd have to work with finance to do a cost projection of.
I'd like to see that for all the departments, public works, fire, police, just for a good better understanding.
Sure.
A lot of my other comments are, you're going through your report or your presentation. I'm just thinking, I'm saving my comments to the end, so this is kind of the end. All I see is less safe, less fun, Pasco. And that's why I want to see what those numbers would be, because we got the preamble earlier that we have these reserves, and the way what I wrote down was, based on the past decisions made by previous city councils, I think we've made our bed and now we got to lay in it. But I don't think we need. I don't want to see any reductions going forward. I think if we do have these reserves, that we use them and continue with the growth and look at economic development strategy to kind of get us into the next biennium because I just would not like to see a Pasco less safe and less fun. Again, this goes counter to a lot of things we've already worked on. These master plans, like what's the point of these master plans? Now I get it. We can't always forecast what the economy is going to look like. However, if the staff is optimistic in regards to those reserves, I say we just stay the course and give the police department, the fire department, the tools that they need to ensure that they keep the community safe as we continue to grow. I would hate to see us regress. So that would be an exercise I would like to see. What would the impact be to our reserves if there was no reductions? And just another thing to note, I'm hearing what the staff has to say in regards to cuts, and we're looking into using a lean program. I would just argue that I think those are things we should be doing we should always be doing, because, always looking to be more efficient, always looking to cut costs, save taxpayer money. I don't think we should do it just because all of a sudden we're seeing a deficit. So that would be like an overarching financial sustainability plank. I think that's one of our goals, is that should just be the culture across the whole city going forward, regardless if we're going to see a deficit. But those are my comments on that. I want to kind of see a contrast between no reductions in the budget and just continuing on with a full-fledged budget that won't impact any of our departments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember, can I clarify one thing really fast? So for the question, are you asking about without cuts, or are you asking where departments would have liked to have been staffing wise?
Yeah, I would like to see what departments would have liked to have been with no staffing cuts and all that stuff.
Right.
I mean, just like if it was the forecast was just sunshine and rainbows, that's what I want to see, and see what the deficit would be with that, and what our reserves would be, and how that'd be impacted.
Thanks for clarifying.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councilman Morales. So now we're going to go on to Councilman Grimm.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. First of all, Chief, I want to say thank you to your men and women in blue who run around and keep this city safe. I mean, you are one of the few functions of government that still works. We can pick up a phone and we get a fine representative of the city of Pasco shows up, and I really, really, really appreciate it. It's not your doing. It's kind of our economy and everything else, but it's hard not to be a little sick to my stomach looking at some of these things. Just to, I guess be a little more emotional than some of my council members, like Mayor Pro Tem Milne said. The thought of RVs backing up everywhere, or all the strides and gains that you have made with your community policing efforts. Especially in the wake of what we saw in 2020 and stuff, and to see that go back. I mean, even that hurts to a degree. As far as closing the lobby on Friday, Monday through Thursday you'll be there. But some of these other things, like we heard in the Road 100 area today, just not being able to freezing a planned traffic unit, and some of those other things. So yeah, I mean, I really appreciate you looking at this so closely. I imagine it was really gut-wrenching for you too, being a law enforcement officer and wanting to do the very best for your community. And so I know looking at some of these things really hurt for you too, and some of the, just the things you built up, whether the Citizens Academy or, other things, and having to, suspend or postpone those things. So I can't imagine this was easy for you at all. And, I guess like Councilman Morales said, part of this is, an ongoing thing with the city as a whole. And, I appreciate our city manager and our deputy city manager, even before we got to the process of a budget and, kind of the current state of the economy, just realizing that, the expectation of this group up here is going to be to, just be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. But again, at the same time, I mean, this is hard. I'm still just kind of reeling and, grasping and coping up here. And, I can't imagine what you went through the last few weeks again to get to this point. And I appreciate you emphasizing that training will not suffer, that protective gear like Chief Crowley will not suffer, that you will take care of your men and women, because again, that is, first and foremost is making sure they get home to their family safe every night. So I really appreciate that. But man, yeah, it makes me want to look over to our deputy city manager and, Miss Buckley over there, and see where there's got to be some more pennies and dimes, somewhere to make some of these things work. So, whether it be a public safety levy lift or other things, this, Yeah, I know you tried to be a really good steward of this as much as possible, but yeah, this is something that, yeah, as much as we can take a close look at, I really appreciate. So thank you for everything.
And happy to bring some more data back later. We do know that Pasco doesn't surprise anybody, even at the police department too. The cost per capita, we do it cheaper than anybody else. So.
No, appreciate that. But yeah, at some point there's got to be some give because, your graph did show a stark contrast as far as, people, officers per population and all that. And so, yep. Look forward to working with staff and seeing what we can do. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilman Grimm, and I do appreciate your empathy towards the police department and then your words. I mean, I know everybody on the council has the same kind of thing. We don't want nothing to stop. We want it to be a safe community. I know Councilman Perales said the same thing, but we do want, we want to have our cake and we want to eat it too. So some hard decisions. We definitely don't want to overspend when we shouldn't be, but we also want safety. So I appreciate everything you're doing. I appreciate you also saying how you're trying to cut costs. You are the cheapest as far as per officer, per citizen. So thank you for everything you do, and I do appreciate you always willing to pick up the phone, and if I call or whatever, you're always willing to pick it up, and I do appreciate that level that you're not putting me on hold and you're willing to engage. So thank you. I do appreciate the few times I've had to call you.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll go on to Councilman Barajas.
Thank you. You actually answered a lot of the questions as you were talking with Mr. Grimm. And Mr. Grimm, you also made some of the comments I was going to make. I just want to say that for as long as I've been on council, and before that, when I needed the services and you guys were there, I've always been very open about saying I've been proud of the police department that we've had, our first responders, both fire and police. Seeing the potential cuts, the impacts to our community is it's saddening because again, you have been, both departments have been working very, very hard in building up that community engagement. And when I say I'm proud of our departments is that engagement, that being part of the community that every officer lives in, breaking down some of those barriers and challenges when it comes to cultural disparities. I hope that these changes don't impact in a huge way to where we lose that connection with our community members. I had some questions in regards to the equipment because we also have to take into consideration the officers. Is there any risk to their livelihood? Is there any risk to their safety? I was reading one of the impacts, replacement of essential equipment such as police radios or extending police vehicle leases. I mean, can we get maybe, or we probably already have it, a breakdown of the contracts for those leases? Is it a 5-year lease, 10-year lease? How long is it? By reducing or extending those leases, what is the impact? Is it significant? So if we can get just a little breakdown on that, that's probably my only ask. But I did want to comment in regards to the exceptional service both police and fire have been offering our community and the connection to our community. And then just one last quick comment. As you know, I work in the sexual assault field. A lot of the grants that I work with come through the Department of Justice. And I'm happy to share some of those grants that I've seen that benefit, that could help as far as the domestic violence program. It could be funded from other sources. Several other small programs might help, but I will be sharing some of that information via staff to make that available to you. But again, I just want to thank both you, Chief, and Chief Crowley for your connection to the community. And I know this is not easy, but we appreciate you all. Thank you.
So please share those. We do have a team that monitors grants constantly as they're coming in and seeing which ones we can apply for. But I'd hate to miss something, so if you have something, please get those to us. Some of the equipment, replacement and vehicle leases, we're literally just kicking the can down the road. So it's not going to impact us in this biennium, much like building headquarters and facility and training facility. We're kicking the can down the road. So we're not impacted in this biennium. Just know you will pick up the freight on that down the road.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Barajas. Appreciate it. And so now we're going to go on to Councilmember Harpster.
Yeah, thanks. These comments are for all three in general. There's nothing specific for you, Chief Roski. I did want to mention I had 12 questions for everybody, even police, that I emailed. And so, my gift to everybody is a couple hours back this evening. Like Councilman Perales mentioned, and I mentioned this to staff yesterday, the lean process improvements, would have liked to see those already in place. Now that we're doing them, would like to see those continue even after we kind of right the ship here, and that's just good business practice. I agree with what some of the folks up here said, but one of the points I'd make is discipline equals freedom. And one of my favorite books is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, a former Navy SEAL. And one of the principles they teach in that book is that discipline equals freedom. So in our situation, if we can do without for a little while, then eventually we'll get back to where we were and presumably even better. And so in that process, doing so without decimating our reserves. So it's not fun for anybody, but I think it's necessary for a time until we can get back to normal levels. And then lastly, one thing I appreciate this evening from all three of you is there's no excuse making it be easy, especially for Chief Crowley being newest to his role, to say, well, my predecessor had established this and that, so I'm going to work to fix it though. But haven't heard that from anybody. And even last week I blamed former council members for certain decisions. That may be fair, but I appreciate the no blaming others and just willing to put in the work and get done what needs to happen. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Harpster. So I think we're going to go to public comment. Sorry, I didn't see it. Sorry, I missed.
I just have some questions on the budget impacts. The suspending domestic violence contract person or contract staff, how would that, I guess, what would that look like? And just like Mayor Pro Tem said, the abandoned RV impound program. So we're just gonna, that would be like stopping that altogether, or we're still gonna pay attention if it becomes a nuisance again?
So the budget cuts are anticipated to stop those programs. Now, based on your suggestions, we'd go back and look at those potentially for the worst of the worst. The domestic violence program is very important. Maybe we can get another entity, government entity, better positioned to take on that grant. A large part of it is covered by a grant, but we have a significant investment out of our budget each biennium to support that. So those would be certainly looked at, but we couldn't guarantee them. Hence, they ended up on the budget reductions.
So I'm also assuming that delaying adding a special victims unit detective is obviously in need, or it would never have been brought up. So currently the detectives are sharing that responsibility.
Yeah, we have 7 detectives back in the suit and tie detective side of the house, and they get all those duties ancillarily split up. Detectives have not had an increase. We anticipated adding detectives because obviously cases continue to climb too. One of the specialties that we know we need to look at is the special victims. And so, that's, again, we're kicking the can down the road. We're going to have to fill that. But today and through the next biennium, those duties will continue to be split by already over caseloaded detectives. Is caseloaded a word?
Okay. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Councilwoman Blaisdell, and I do say I'm sorry for missing that. I saw my own name up on the the speaker thing, so I thought, well, must be because I'm speaking, but so again, I do apologize for that. So yeah, so we're gonna have another comment by Councilmember Ross.
Just one last comment, and Chief, you might want to come back up. I'm so sorry. And please correct me if I'm wrong. The in-house domestic violence staff at PD is again in-house and paid by our budget. However, just like if you were to cut this position, there is still a connection, just like fire has their resource navigator. There's referral. There's continued referrals to the actual Benton Franklin Domestic Violence Services or other resources within the community. So I think, again, chiefs, correct me, the resource navigator steps in, and then your officers would step in if that situation was to happen. It's not that there's not going to be an in-house person, but there's still going to be that service.
Yeah, where there may be a gap is the advocate helps work them through the legal process to obtain whatever protection orders might be in place there. The deputy chief actually oversees that program. Do you have anything else to add to that, or is that about? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilmember Rojas. Appreciate.
I don't know if that helps.
What's that?
I don't know if that helps, Melissa.
Okay. So yeah, so now we're at the point of public comment. So again, if you could limit it to 2 minutes. So the podium is open if you'd like to come up here and make a comment. Going once, going twice. I'm not seeing anybody jump up or their hands up. So with that, public comment's closed. And I do know, and again, I'll refer to the council. We've been here 2.5 hours. I know we've had requests for a break. We do have, it looks like about 8 minutes left to have Chief of Police Kinrosky give some other updates. Do we want to take a 5-minute recess or do we want to power through this? Okay, well. Okay, I guess let's take a 5-minute break. Right now it's 9:32. We'll be back at 9:37. So thank you. From our break. He said. So now we're back from our break. So let's move on with our agenda. So we are going to be on section D, 5D, and that is ordinance number amending PMC sections 10.31.010 and 10.31.020 related to automated traffic cameras. And this is also going to be a Jeff Chief Cook. Okay, it's Ken Roski here, so that he was. And then if you're going to do the other three presentations as well? Okay, so if you don't mind, we're going to do your presentations, and then we'll have public comment at the very end, so that way it's uninterrupted. And so you'll just do D through G, and then we'll allow that. So. Okay, well, whatever I want to have, leave. Yeah, so it's a little more streamlined. So thank you. Can you hit the
Deputy
mic?
Chief, Mike.
Council and Mayor Pro Tem, before you on the amendment to PMC 10 is a change to that ordinance to come in compliance with the current RCW. The RCW in the last legislative session for traffic camera enforcement was repealed and replaced. So our ordinance needs to come up to date with the changes. Some of those key changes that were made in that ordinance, are there some requirements to setting up new traffic things, and there are some new uses. There is allowability for hospital speed zones, public park speed zones, school walk zones, and roadway construction. And so our ordinance will come up to date to allow those. Not that we will put those in, but it would allow for those if we were to choose to do that. And the amendment will bring us up to speed on that. And do you have any questions?
Does any member of the council have questions for Deputy Chief of Police Cook? I guess not. So let's move on.
Okay. The resolution that for the interlocal agreement with the Department of Corrections is for the use of part of our facility. We have partnered with them over the last few years to have them in our facility. They bring community supervision into our building, which means the people who are being let out of prison are being supervised within our community, and it gives us direct access to their people who are supervising them, where they're at, what's going on. It has been a great relationship with them, and they are valuable to our functions. Do you have any questions about that?
Do you have any member of the council have questions? So I guess keep on going.
Okay. The next resolution is an interlocal agreement with the Washington State Internet Crimes Against Children. That task force collects potential crimes from across the state. The ones that are potentially within our jurisdiction are routed to us. This agreement basically lets us cooperate with them and take those investigations and work them within our city. And that has been also a valuable partnership. It gives us access to some equipment that's housed in Richland. Investigators there are very well versed in these crimes, and our detectives are working closely with them. And are there any questions about that?
All right. Well, thank you. Any questions from the diocese? Not seeing anything. So
And I will
thank you
turn
very
it over
much.
to Lieutenant Decker.
All right. So Lieutenant Decker, thank you for being here and a long evening, but please shoot away.
Well, is there anything you want to know what you bought? District Policing bought you the best lieutenant money could buy here. So there you are. So I'm here to do the same thing I did for you guys last year. It's the interagency agreement with the Washington Traffic Safety Commission for the Target Zero program. That program is funded, we are Region 14, it's funded through the state, which provides us with a little extra to do traffic enforcement, major details such as New Year's Eve, DUI patrols, things like that throughout the whole year, which the state funds. We are pretty big contributor to that in the Tri-Cities. We were one of the main ones. We were granted about $15,000 to $16,000 for this next budget for us. So this is just an agreement for us to continue doing that, and that we're going to continue to participate in that, as well as we spearhead the program's Target Zero, which is educating high school students on the perils of impaired driving. And that's about 50-50 with what the schools, we give them the choice whether they want to do that or the 15 minutes program, and that's their decision. And we do about half and half right now with that. But this is just an ask to the interagency agreement to continue that relationship and continue that program. If you have any questions.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions for Lieutenant Decker?
Sorry, yes, thank you. I do have a question. Sorry.
Okay, so we have Councilmember Ross.
Question on the $15,000 grant. This is an annual grant, or this is a grant for the extension of the agreement?
So they granted about, I can't give you the exact numbers. So the state grants Region 14 a set amount. So based upon how much the departments are using in that amount in that budget period last year, they'd kind of divvy it up and say, you guys used this much last year, so we're going to cut the piece of the pie for you. So if, say, which has happened, certain cities don't use all those funds, but we do, which happened just recently. We did use it for our speed details for some issues around the city, and we pulled from that fund to use it to fund officers to go hammer that area for traffic issues. We were, I think, $1,500 over. The state took some of those funds that were excess that no one else used in those other cities and drafted it to us. So it's just a big fund. It's just a piece of the pie that we're cut out. We can use more the more we use it. But that's just, it's a big slush.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Ross. Do we have any other? I guess you're off the hook. So thank you.
Sure.
With that, we'll move on to miscellaneous council discussion. Oh, yes. Do we have any public comment on the police report? Going once, going twice. Not seen any. So now we'll move on to miscellaneous council discussion. Is there anything that any member of the? We got Mr. Lincoln first.
One quick update from Director Sarah.
Good evening again. Just a reminder, tomorrow is the Good Roads meeting. That is an advocacy group. Meetings will be taking place in Pasco and at the airport offices, and there is a possibility to participate remotely. Tomorrow, the meeting will include the voting of the members for defining which is the number 6 priority in the region for transportation projects. And we hope to be able to get some votes on our Road 76 overpass. The list already includes the US 12 and A Street intersection traffic analysis. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Do we have any other? We got Councilmember Perales.
Okay, yeah, I'll gonna need about 5 minutes or so, but I'll be quick. I think the first one's a softball. I've been talking with State Senator Perry Dozier's office, and I just want to gauge interest from this body to put in a capital budget request in January for the MLK Center. He's a big, strong advocate. They got money a couple years ago, and I told him that we need more money, and so he said, get some support from the council and put a budget request in. So, I'm putting that out there. I think a lot of people would agree. The next item would be, I just want to put that out there now since we're going to be focused on the budget. The next item, I wanted to talk about planning policies for the Pasco Community and Economic Development Department, and hopefully they can implement. I know this topic's probably pretty esoteric, and for the people out there probably watching it online, there's been a couple of reports, or essentially plans and studies that have been done by the city over the last couple of years, and I've developed relationships with developers and builders and stuff, and I've just talked to them about processes and ordinances and our policies that could be better. And so there's a lot of different things that I think need to be done. And I do understand that a lot of it's being done with the consultant that we've hired. I haven't been privy to those conversations, but I believe we're going to have an update here in a couple weeks. But I did share a PDF of things that I've talked about with developers and builders and what have you, and things that I think need to be implemented. And I'm doing this because I feel like sometimes we get told, well, that's a city council policy or that's a city policy. Well, if that's going to be a city council policy, then I feel like we should have more influence over certain policies and procedures then, especially if they're going to be impacting development and economic development. So like, I'm just going to go through a couple of them. I send it to every one of you guys on the council. Hopefully we can talk more about this. I was hoping to have Mr. Gonzalez here today, but he's not. Maybe he could have talked to a couple of these. But I'm just going to go ahead and just start with one of them. Park impact fee credits. So a city practice we currently see is that the city expects developers to dedicate land and build parks as part of a new residential projects, but doesn't have the proper codes and standards in place to enforce this legally. Even when developers do contribute, the city often doesn't give the necessary impact fee credits. This is concerning because this could be problematic because it go against our own code and also current RCWs, and I cited those in this little PDF document I created, which require the developers receive credit for their land and park contributions to offset the impact fees the city charges. So again, a lot of these things I've talked with actual developers, civil engineers who are working with the city, and these are things that they've told me that currently we are doing. Another one of them that's a concern for me is the permit timeframes. For instance, city practice is that the city isn't sticking to the timeframes required for the traffic impact analysis process, which violates RCW 36.7.040. This law is supposed to ensure that processes are handled in a timely and predictable manner. I think this is concerning because it just, we're not following state mandated timelines, which leads to delay and costs for projects. And we are looking at stricter deadlines come January due to a state bill 5290, which means that we need to start being faster in the way we review permits and stuff. So I'm looking forward to that discussion here in a couple of weeks. What's some other ones? SEPA thresholds. That's a really big item as well. A lot of people get through the ringer with that process, and we're not even close to a lot of our other cities in regards to exemptions and stuff like that. So other cities are doing things that I wish we would be doing. And so again, I feel like if it's going to be on us in regards to these policies, then I think we should have more of a influential hand in making these better for developers because we need more development. I'll share one last one, and we've talked a lot about it, and it's in regards to proportionate share contributions. Essentially, the city's practice is double dipping, or we don't really have a good pulse about how to implement it. The city's practice is charging developers extra fees called proportionate share contributions for transportation infrastructure on top of the transportation impact fees already required through the SEPA MDNS process and the city's concurrency review process. The concern is that this approach doesn't really align with our current RCWs, which states that SEPA fees shouldn't be added when impact fees are already in place to avoid redundant fees for the same impact. And this is going to be a really big issue because there was a Supreme Court decision called the Sheets decision that essentially is going to mandate that cities provide, their formulas and how they calculated those fees in regards to the concurrency review process and other mitigations. So again, you can look through it. I think I'm going to hopefully have Jacob Gonzalez talk about all 13 of these possible policy changes here in a couple weeks, but I just think we need to get a better handle on some of this stuff and start becoming more in line with as a region in regards to development fees. So that's all I just wanted to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Perales. And then we now have Councilmember Harpster.
Yeah, I think most of us already heard about this, but just wanted to give a shout out to Director Sarah and her team for securing $2.1 million in federal funding for safety enhancements at the Road 76 and Santa Fe intersection. It's a very busy and dangerous intersection, and it's right by Station 83, West Pasco Library. Ben Franklin Transit has a stop right there, and numerous commercial businesses. And so I'm just excited to see that project is fully funded through that grant. And just kudos to you and your team. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Councilman Harpster, for bringing that up, and thank you, Director Maria Serra, for doing that and trying to keep our community safe. I do want to say thank you. With that, looks like we don't have any other things, so
One lost. Sorry.
I guess we had a little beep in there. So we got Councilmember Barajas.
I was not going to say anything, but it was not mentioned. Just want to remind council members, staff, and anyone that is watching. Thursday there will be a celebration, promotion celebration held at the fire station 84. At fire station 84. So you're all invited. Staff is probably going to be there, but again, let's be supportive of our first responders. So inviting the community to be there if you can. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. So that moves us on to number 7, and I don't believe we have an executive session, so hallelujah on that one. So that brings us to 8, which is adjournment. Adjournment. Thank you, everybody, for attending.